What's going on? Facebook Live, 7:35. We got there close. We got Nate Hale, Eric Spencer, or as we're going to refer to him, Spenny, and then Leo.
Hey.
Returning guest, Leo Longalong.
Hi.
Did I say that right? Leo?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, and if you guys have Facebook, if you guys too, this is the time if you guys want to share it. If you guys enjoy this, share the podcast live to your personal pages. This is the time for you to share it to groups as well. I'm going to get started here, so I probably won't be able to do it as much right away. But yeah, it looks good there. And turn your volume down because that's rude.
Ooh.
Because that's what I did.
Nice.
All right, so yeah, Spenny, as we kind of explained, everyone at home, we do this. If you're first time listening or viewing on Facebook, we do this a little bit first, do the introductions, then we start the actual podcast. So, you good?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So tune in, right, like I said, and then chime in the conversation. Let us know what you are drinking, smoking, what you're doing tonight, how your night's going, all that good stuff. You guys ready, or are you still sharing? I'll share as we get going.
Yeah, I've shared.
You good?
I'm already shared at this point.
So you don't know?
Maybe.
All right. Cool. Let's do this. Do I have to do? Can someone else do the cheers? You think? Can you do the cheers?
Yeah.
You think? Because I don't.
When you're ready.
Hang on a second. Before I hit the rim. Hang on.
Wait, you hit my rim then.
In honor of Jake's absence tonight on episode 68 of Bourbon BS podcast, here's for you, Jake. Cheers.
Oh,
that sucked, like
that
Jake.
sucked.
Now, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 68. Get a hobby. They got Dustin in the background trying to do a better cheers, which was all right. We are without Jake Sanders tonight. I am holding it down. Jake is at the Tinder Box picking up some extra hours, trying to get some extra cash, which is always good. Actually part of the topic a little bit when your hobby becomes a little bit more than just a hobby and possibly becomes a job. So we miss him tonight, but we are going to do our best to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. We got Nate Hale, who's been on several times. What episode is this for you? Like, how many returning episodes?
I think this will be number 8.
8. 8, which is I think second just to Dustin.
Yes.
We lost track of Dustin, but Dustin's going to be on next week. And we're going
Dustin is the producer.
He is. So, and we already have a question. Adam Brown's asking Nate if his hobby is amateur taxidermy. So we'll find out about that later.
Nice.
I don't know why. He's looking confused for those on audio.
Adam Brown?
What is the biggest possibly stuff? I feel like we're going somewhere else with that. I don't know. We have also returning guest Leo Longalong, this is episode 2 for you, right? Welcome back.
Hi.
Way to speak up. That's really nice.
Hi.
There you go. And then we have Eric Spencer, who, as I said on Facebook Live for you guys already, that goes by Spenny. Yes.
One name, like Cher or...
You're a stage performer.
Right,
Stage
exactly.
Performer. Good. We have a treat from Spenny, actually. He brought something that, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how this goes, but you cannot find these cigars anywhere yet. So this is a hobby of his, it's a passion of his, and he's going to get into that a little bit later. But we are smoking a Spenny prototype cigar. I would say this is Corona size. What's the rim gauge?
It's 43.
43, 5 by 43?
5 and about a quart.
5 and a quarter. That's nice. All right, so we're going to get into that. And also, Leo was kind enough to bring, what'd you bring, Leo?
I brought in Oban Little Bay. Small little Scotch, very great to taste, and owned by a company named Diageo.
All right, and we're going to get into that a little bit. We've already had one glass of that, right?
Yeah.
So are you on your second one, or is that the first one?
Maybe third.
Are you serious? We learned something. Last time Leo was on, but
that's the second, because before we started, he goes, I think it's almost time for my third.
All right. So we'll see how Leo is at minute number 35.
Yeah, we'll see.
Going forward. So I want to also thank our sponsors. We have Altadis USA, who behind us, if you're watching on the video, we've got Romeo, Julieta, Monte Cristo, H. Upmann. We're going to be smoking our second cigar from them, which is the H. Upmann Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez. We've smoked it plenty of times before. It's definitely a staple. We didn't know what we were going to be smoking exactly in this prototype cigar, so as a follow-up, I didn't want to go strong, light, right in the middle. So hopefully that helps out. And again, we've got the Oban Little Bay on the table. And also, I brought some David Nicholson Reserve. I know Nate likes that one, and I took a chunk out of his bottle, so I knew he was going to be on. So I figured I'd return the favor by having that as a backup if we kill or don't want to kill the Oban. So
I still brought 3 bottles. So.
And Nate brought 3 bottles. That's fantastic. We have whiskey, which is a good thing. If you guys enjoy this, really what we're looking for is to enjoy Altadis Cigars, obviously our sponsor. Also Tinder Box at Easton, who provides typically our weekly cigar, but we have that taken care of with the prototype cigar, which we're looking forward to. And then BS Cigar Company, which I was halfway through a BS Gold before we started, but we were talking too much, so I didn't get through it. And share, if you guys like this, please share the YouTube video, because it'll be on there on Friday, the audio on iTunes, Spotify, Overcast, most of the podcast listeners, and then also Facebook Live, share it. That's where we get our most traffic. So you can share it now live. If you listen to the audio, you're free on Wednesday nights, 7:30 to about 9:30. We do 2 hours-ish. And you can actually tune in, join the conversation. We got Dustin Bovey typically trying to work the Facebook Live, and we also try to chime in the best we can as well. So, all right, let's get started. How was your guys' week?
Busy.
Leo says busy.
Fairly busy. So,
Yeah?
Yeah, just trying to keep up with work and all that good jazz, and
What jazz is that?
playing the
Sure.
clarinet in the moonlight,
That's good.
in the meadow, somewhere. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, it's been busy.
It's been busy. Good. Nate?
Been a good week.
Yeah?
One of my coworkers has been out a little bit because he's expecting his second kid
Nice.
sometime soon. So I've kind of been having to do part of his work too, which is fine because he actually took some of my load off when he started. So now it's just like going back to normal.
That's nice.
Cheers to that.
Too often, obviously, it's just like people want time off. Kids, obviously, one thing, but they want time off, but then when there's time off to be covered, they're the last person to, be around.
Yeah, we've talked
It's like
about that.
Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets.
Yeah.
And then Spenny, how about you? It's first time on, right?
Yeah, first time on.
We appreciate you coming on.
It's been quiet. Been doing mostly yard work this week so far, and training to be on the podcast tonight.
Like physical training or
Physical
mental,
there was a montage,
emotional?
right, where
Lots
of boxing.
Was it Eye of the Tiger?
Boxing.
Bought a
Yeah.
Blue Yeti to just speak into, because
Yes.
that's what you guys use here on the show. And so
Didn't plug it in anything.
didn't like
No, just
left it in the box
completely a
actually
prop.
to try and
It was a show floor model.
And I was like
It was.
Mickey, and I was like, roll that cigar.
So you were there too?
Yeah.
Were
no.
you? Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Again, we thank you guys for tuning in. I'm doing all my sharing right now as you guys were talking, and there's just so many pages, which we appreciate all the support from you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. So, let's start with, as we typically do, we're going to have a topic tonight of Get a Hobby, but we're starting with Oban the Little Bay. And Leo studied up on it. He's filling in for Jake in this week's whiskey, and not quite a bourbon.
No, not a bourbon.
And you wanted to do, what you call a little
Asian flair.
Asian flair, so you picked a Scotch that
Yeah, I was not
has
thinking at all.
nothing to do with Asian flair. That's perfect. No,
It's just I have my own Asian flair when it comes out of it.
that's true.
And I just kind of come in. I just bring random bottles. I'm like, hey, let's
That's
try it.
perfect.
So, so pretty much Oban Little Bay is actually made by a large company called Diageo, which actually owns Johnny Walker, Crown, Tanqueray, and Guinness, which everyone is familiar at their common bars. Typically, they opened up around 1794, had only 2 pot stills, and they've been known for having a West Highland flavor in scotches. Since then, the whole company was actually started up by 2 guys named Hugh and John Stevenson. Eventually, they were sold off to Dewars and joined the distillery company. Eventually, fell silent during 1925, fell silent around 1937, and eventually around 1989, they came back up, and here we have is Oban Little Bay, and they have several other versions of. They have the 14 and the 18, and I think there's a 25 year. So.
And the Oban?
Yeah, and I've
What's the
enjoyed.
significance of the Little Bit, do you know? Did you check that out?
I didn't actually check that one out,
Alright.
unfortunately.
Use your smart device there
Smart
to figure
device.
that out. And in the meantime, Spenny, talk to us about this cigar.
Well, I can see that we're already experiencing the very first construction
Yeah.
issue here.
It's all right. It's all right.
That's right. I want to make sure that Steve got the blunt one here. So
I'm the professional, right?
Exactly. I figured, and it would work well. So about the cigar, it is made with leaf that's been 100% procured from the market here in America. There are two main places that provide leaf. One of them is located here in Ohio, actually up in Akron, and the other in Connecticut are the two primary sources for leaf. And so just through purchasing different varieties of leaf, I've blended a few different cigars, and we're trying this one out here tonight, see how it works. It is I don't know if you want full blending composition.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, it is a half leaf of Dominican Ligero, a half leaf of Nicaraguan Habano Seco, a half leaf of Corojo Viso, a full leaf of Corojo Seco, and it's all wrapped up in a Dominican binder with a very light shade of Connecticut broadleaf actually hiding out as the wrapper.
What was it?
It's Connecticut broadleaf wrapper.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't immediately jump out to you as CBL since usually that's much darker, but it is one of the much lighter variants, unfortunately, due to the wrapper quality for whole leaf in America being somewhat less great than what's available to Central and South America.
It's a highly sought after wrapper leaf.
Right.
Have you been out to Connecticut at all to see that?
Not, no.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, they're smaller fields than what they're able to do, obviously, elsewhere, but there's a lot of it still. But it's extremely highly sought after. Most of it is already in contract, you know what I mean? Like, I was out at the Altadis farms in Connecticut and saw it, but I mean, again, that's all theirs. They own the farm. So it's like, where are you getting it from? You're kind of on the back burner, you're on the lower end of the totem pole. I mean, it makes sense. So talk to us about the bunching, though. I don't know how you feel. I mean, this is all part of it, though. I mean, this is, you roll the cigars, you're newer at it. This is a hobby of yours, right?
It is. Yep. Just a hobby that I kind of took up after getting to see the rollers and the torcedores down in Nicaragua at Drew Estate, the Gran Fabrica. Was there several years back and saw that and thought, wow, that's awesome. I wonder if I'd be able to do that and try that myself. And so.
Over there. You can't see on camera. What I want to see your pretty face.
I was going to try and hide my identity.
No. We got to get you out in front of the public.
Okay, yeah. And Leo actually is holding the mold there.
Yeah, got a mold.
You can pull it
so,
out.
where'd you get the mold?
The mold was actually sourced. It's a General Cigar mold.
Okay.
There was a former employee of General Cigar that he worked actually up in Connecticut that ended up selling me that. And so got several different molds from him, as well as some leaf.
So, I mean, what does a mold like that cost?
That mold was $35. I've seen molds go from $35 all the way up to $100 for custom machine molds. You can order molds from several different places online to have one made just to your specifications if you want to roll something particular or you're looking to copy a vitola from a specific brand.
So, and you have the one mold, is that right? Or do you have several molds?
Got about 10 or 15.
Oh shit!
So yeah.
And what's this? Is you said a 5.5 or 5 1/4 by 43?
About 5 1/4 by 43. Yeah.
Okay. And talk to me about like your bunch techniques. I mean, we might as well get into some of this. I mean, this is something that again, like we've had Ricky Rodriguez on here, we've had Alec Rubin, but as far as having someone that's getting into it, that's really kind of at the. I mean, you've explained to us already prior to the podcast that you're extremely enthusiastic about this industry. I mean,
upsettingly so.
Upsettingly so. But I mean, where did you learn how to actually do it? Like, what do you know? What form of bunching you do? Do you know how does this work?
It's my take on entubado.
Okay.
So it's an attempt at it. Is it perfect? Is it done well? No. Was it perfect or attempted to be perfected purely through watching YouTube videos of Cuban rollers in hotels? Yes. That's so the training there is purely from YouTube and from online sources.
Explain to everyone what entubado. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but what do you mean entubado rolling?
Okay. Basically, you are bunching your leaves by folding them or wrapping them into scrolls, and then you are bunching them to size and then putting your binder around them, placing them in the mold here. rotating them 90 degrees after you've gotten a press on them, and then you're putting your wrapper on.
How long is the process?
The process for me, usually I will bunch 10 and leave them overnight after rotating them for the first 30 minutes. So just a little bit less pressure. Not that Steve can tell since his was incredibly plugged, I believe. But
you know, it's something. I mean, that's part of it, though, right? I mean,
right.
Like this is something. I mean,
it's a handmade product, and it's very novice hands at work here. So
yeah. You're a level 1 roller, right?
Right,
I mean,
a white belt, if you will.
A white belt.
Right.
As far as the overall construction, I mean, it's just mine is plugged. That's it. I mean, we were just talking about before the podcast. I mean, so that's part of the issues we've had with the BS Gold recently, and that's something that we're actually outsourcing that to people that are supposed to be very high level rollers. So it's not against necessarily you or anything, but that's part of this why we wanted to do this. How about you guys? How are you guys smoking?
I was doing pretty good at the very beginning, but I'm like, let's try to open it up a little bit more,
Yeah.
get more draw. But overall, I mean, it's still smoking great, and I would say the construction is not too bad aside from just the draw. But I mean, I still think the flavor is fantastic, and overall, like, draw's decent, but it's a little bit slow.
So it's a little. How about you, Nate?
It's weird because I can pull air through it, but it definitely feels tight and it's not burning much.
Yeah.
Like I can pull air without having to suck too hard on it, but it's not getting a whole lot of smoke through the cigar.
Why do you think that is?
It's probably involving the amount of time it spends in the mold.
Yeah.
I would, which I've been tinkering with, trying to cut down or trying to turn up depending on how loose or tight the draw is, just because the leaf count's another thing that I do play with. But
I think that's probably what it is, I'd imagine. Now, did you study on? So again, being a 43 ring gauge, I mean, do you study, or is that completely just up to you as far as when you get closer to that mold size?
Right. Yeah. No, that's just.
So you're basically eyeballing this stuff at this point.
Exactly.
So that's something that I imagine will get better and better with time. Did you get through it?
We're good.
What was that for the audio listeners without the cigar in your mouth?
It's pretty good.
We don't have subtitles on the audio.
Yeah, it's actually really good.
Yeah?
Use it.
I mean, I love it. I mean, I love the fact that this is something that you're doing. I mean, again, I love Connecticut broadleaf. You're right. I mean, it's just interesting that you say that because for those of you, that do smoke Connecticut broadleaf, obviously we are used to it being typically a darker shade wrapper leaf. It's definitely one of the sought after ones for being a Maduro shade leaf when they call it Maduro. San Andreas, Connecticut broadleaf are two of the probably highly sought after ones. And it's interesting to find. I'm going to poke this. I'm not going to give up on it. That's the fun part about this, in my opinion.
I feel like you got the runt out of the group when it comes to
That's fine. Now you got smoke. I got a stiff spot somewhere in here.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'm going to just.
Well, I felt it when the poker pushed through that and kind of cracked the wrapper a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely opened it up. I can definitely pull more smoke through it now.
I'm going slow because I don't want to, break the wrapper, and I don't want to stab myself and get blood on your draw poker.
That's much appreciated.
Just don't go out the side.
That's the goal. That's obviously the goal.
Oops, I pooped my thumb.
All right, what did you find out about the Little Bay here?
So Little Bay is actually a little distillery that's actually located in the Western Highlands of Scotland, hence the name Little Bay.
So
it's a separate distillery from the regular Bourbon.
Labeled as small cast, non-age dated release, says a matured small batch Oban, single malt, gives it time, or pretty much it's a small release, basically. Hence, I guess a Little Bay comes out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's it. What do you think of the Scotch then?
I love it, mostly because the thing is, it has a very light body. It's a little bit, has a little bit of heat to it, but overall, like, it has a large amount of sweet notes that kind of come through it. What we rated last time was the Toki, which was, much more lighter, but sweeter and very floral and citrusy. This one's more, I would say, caramel-like and even creamy in a sense. And overall, like, the body of it, it's almost like a level above the Suntory Toki that we tried out last time when I was actually a guest.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. I would say that'd be more of a fall type of drink.
Why would you say fall?
Fall because it's kind of winter and you kind of want something like it's almost like it's like a cider, not like a cider, but like a coffee that you would have like milk in it or something of that nature, like cream with it. It's nice and evenly bodied, and yeah, pretty much about it.
What about you, Nate?
I get a lot of that peatiness
Yeah.
that certain scotches, depending on the region, have, and I'm not a big fan of that peatiness, but it's a little toned down versus some of the ones that I have had.
Even from Oban.
Yes, even from Oban. It's
Oban,
not,
yeah, I mean, they've had some.
Yeah, Oban's normally pretty peat heavy.
Have you had some of this, Dustin?
Not yet.
All right.
It kind of reminds me of Lafroig a little bit, but
Mhm.
this is, much toned down, lighter.
It is lighter.
It's definitely got legs in the glass on it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very oily, and it just coats your palate too.
Yeah.
So the finish on it lasts for a long time.
Yeah. Spenny, how about you?
It's tasty. I'm very inexperienced when it comes to scotches.
Okay.
Usually when I'm looking for tasting notes, I will contact Leo here and I'll say, Leo, what am I tasting? And he'll give me the rundown. But
Quite complex, but this time around, I'm kind of like, it's good. That's about it.
right, and that's where I usually it's tasty, and it does not have that really strong, terrifying peat flavor that I just absolutely
Terrifying.
Right.
That's one of the things I absolutely
With
disliked
Scotch.
about Ardbeg. Like Ardbeg was super peaty, and that's why I'm always like trying to find different scotches that are like a little bit easier to take in, and also these are like liquors or whiskeys to just for someone who's new to try out, and even at $40 a bottle, it's
That's what this is?
yeah.
Which for a Scotch, that seems very reasonable.
Yeah, that's on the low side.
Very much on the low side. But I've noticed that a lot of the Scotch companies are doing that. They're like Glenfiddich, the Oban, there's Macallan, I think has a lower price point.
Yeah.
Johnny Walker is obviously doing a lot of lower price point now. It's like they're as the bourbon market kind of keeps creeping up in America. So
That's what I was going to ask you. If you
Supply
think
and
that the
demand.
bourbon market has kind of influenced the Scotch market a little bit with that.
well, yeah, I mean, if the bourbon market's going up, I mean, to me, it just seems like they're not going to like just the Scotch market then just be like, all right, you guys are now pushing $40 where we used to be like 5 to 10 years ago. All right, now we're going to be $60. Like we're going to like keep putting ourselves up there because the price comes out. I think this is something that they're actually, because we have another $40 bottle on the table with David Nicholson, which for a bourbon is starting to become a little bit more the norm. If you can get a good bottle for like 25, 30, 35, it's like you're getting lucky anymore.
Yeah. Weller. Wait, Weller?
Weller, yeah, Weller's
Weller's-
definitely one of them.
Because I feel like honestly nowadays everyone's really getting into bourbon. It's starting to become like a large trend now.
I had a coworker that over the weekend went with her husband down and did a tour of Heaven Hill.
Oh.
And they actually said that this is the biggest bourbon craze that they've seen in their history.
Yeah, for sure. This is the hottest one. We talked about that last week with Rolling Barrel Tours, which we thank for being on here. I mean, they were fantastic. But I mean, they are definitely, that was the topic last week, striking while the iron's hot. And they definitely are doing that from a different angle. That was some of the stuff that we talked about. I don't know, Spenny, you said you didn't watch or listen to that one. But I mean, we had a company on here that they have just started. We're talking like 3 months ago.
Oh wow.
They went official, and they are basically all-inclusive, setting up tours from Columbus, including lodging, transportation, the tours themselves, all the connections, and you can just kind of book a trip for a group, head down there with them for whatever days, weekend, whatever, and they'll line all that stuff up. And it's a perfect time to do that while all that, because all the distilleries are doing this very much touristy type of attraction, and it's a great way to do it.
And that's what's actually, I feel like that's what kind of sparked the bourbon craze, because like it became a touristy thing to do, and everyone would always go down, down south and just be like, yeah, let's go on the bourbon trail, because it's something to explore around and just check it out. And now that people have had like some affinities to different bourbons, now everyone's actually like, well, I want to expand my palate. I mean, that's where I'm kind of at, like with all whiskeys, is that like, I just want to expand my palate and like different alcohols to try out. So
With bourbons or just in general?
in general,
Yeah.
I still get to actually go around gins and tequilas. I know a lot of people hate gins, but actually, honestly, there's a good few gins that I found that you can actually just drink by itself, and it's pretty easy. Nolets is one of them.
What is it?
Nolets?
Nolets?
Yeah, Nolets. And Nolets, I would say it would be somewhat top shelf. But overall, I've enjoyed it. It's very floral, botanic, like a lot of
Botanicals?
botanicals.
Yeah.
And even with death's door, had a lot of botanicals, and like that's one of the things. It's kind of like instead of getting that, like with scotches you get peat, gins you get more, the floral notes that you kind of get from it.
Oh, for sure.
And that's why I kind of am expanding more on just drinking different types of alcohols just by itself.
No, it's a good thing. Tyler Jones, who's going to be on next week, says Knowledge Gin is awesome by itself. So, I mean, definitely have some support out there.
Yeah, you said that name, and I'm thinking someone goes, "Nah, I don't want to make a gin." They're like, "No,
Yeah.
let's."
No.
Hey, there's our name.
Yeah, no, everyone's just like, everyone hates gin. Like, gin is like the evil cousin of all alcohol. It's like, if you put tonic in it, it's like, all right, now I can take on this cousin.
Yeah, gin and tonics, obviously, but there's other cocktails.
Well,
But, okay, martini. Talking about, you guys drink martinis, anyone?
rarely, but I have.
Yeah.
Usually I like mine really dirty.
But a vodka martini or a gin martini?
Gin.
Really?
Gin martini.
Yikes.
Mostly because, like, I don't know, just the overall mixture of, like, and I had it when I was just kind of a little bit tossed and turned with numerous different alcohols. So.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yay. Other than that, yeah, pretty much I had mine very, very dirty, and I enjoyed it. I mean, that olive brine, I like the taste of it, and along with the gin, just kind of, it's a very interesting contrasting flavor of very botanicals, very floral notes, and then also just that olive brine, that like really salty but like tangy taste.
See, I like a dirty martini with vodka, but I can't do
Not
the gin.
gin.
And my first martini was booze. I was like, oh yeah, I was on all-inclusive down in Jamaica, and it's like one of those things, like, you know what, I'm going to do a martini. I'm gonna make it look so, glamorous, and, Bond, and yada, yada, yada. And then he's like, I was like, I'll take a martini. He's like, then he asked all the follow-up questions. First one was gin or vodka, and I'm like, gin. You say it with confidence, you know what I mean?
Stirred.
Yeah, you want it up, like, I'm like, yeah. Dirty, yeah.
See, I don't like ordering any drink that has a bunch of yes/no questions to it or something like that.
If then
I mean, you always have some questions unless you say the answers first. I mean, if I say, like, I want a dirty martini, with kettle,
Yeah.
like, cool. Like, they're going to make it. And then I love having blue cheese stuffed olives, though.
Really?
Have you ever had them?
I'm not a big fan of blue cheese.
It's amazing.
But I'm more of a go to the bar and like, hey, can I get David Nicholson neat? That
Easy.
Put that in my glass.
That's
Well, that's
that
why-
bottle
Yeah.
here.
That's why I was
In my
like
tummy.
ordering. That's why I like
Most-
just ordering just whiskey by itself, because it's just like it's an easy pour. Done. So.
Well, and that's most of what I drink, because I want to drink it for the flavor. I want to taste the main ingredient. Yes, I've had Manhattans or old fashions,
Yeah.
but for the most part, if I'm going to drink whiskey, I want to taste the whiskey and nothing else.
Yeah, but I love a good cocktail.
Cocktails are really good.
How are these smoking?
To me, this is a cocktail.
Cocktail. Spenny, what do you think? How's yours? You didn't really comment. I mean, I know you're the artist behind this.
Right. Yeah. No, I was just gonna kind of fill the room before I jumped in there on the quality. It is combusting slightly. So we do have a cigar that does smoke.
Oh.
Not getting a ton of flavor. Leo's is actually exploding as well.
No, like I heard it cracked earlier, and I was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's fine." And then I look in the light, and I'm like, "Oh."
Right. I should have brought the pectin along, but I did not.
That's fine. No, I think this is honestly, I'm enjoying this. I mean, as far as it's almost like an experiment, but when I'm getting a good draw, I'm getting actually some decent flavor. In the Retro Hale, there's no real pepper or anything like that to it. It's not really, but it's actually got a nice aroma. It's like something that if you're tweaking these blends, I mean, the biggest thing is, as you're doing it, I mean, one of the things you want to do is get some feedback, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons you're doing this. My first initial feedback is like what you said, when you're eyeballing how much filler to put in the different sizes, how many leaves. I mean, if you talk to any of these people, as far as like, we got Nook and Tom Lazuka, they're watching, they're in the car right now, so I don't know who's driving, but Nook, please be careful. Tom, be careful if you're behind the wheel. I assume it's Nook. So buckle up would be my advice. But you talk to some of these people in the industry. If you handed these to them, you almost have to say, like, and you can't be offended by it, right? You're just literally just like smoke it, try to smoke it, let me know what you think, all that stuff. And I think the first notes are the construction. This is something that you're new at. So I mean, I don't know if the answer is to take a leaf out and like literally like do it like that, where you have say these 4 and you count the leaves that you're putting in there, as far as your batches of tobaccos when you're doing your parts as far as the filler combo. And I think that's the trial and error side of it. I mean, you're recreating the wheel in a sense, but you said you saw people do it and you watch YouTube videos on it. Like, you haven't been trained by someone that actually knows what they're doing, and then like they're watching you do it, and you're like, no, that's too many, or that's, you're bunching it wrong, you're doing it whatever. But I mean, I would say it's just literally like you could do it something where, and again, talking about hobbies, this is something as you get better at. It's like woodworking and stuff like that. You're gonna mess up the first couple times. You're not, you might get lucky and it's great, but it's like, hey, I'm gonna make a table, and it's like you do it, you do all your measurements, you're measuring twice, you do all this stuff, you have it upside down, and then you're like, all right, it looks perfect. You flip it up, and it's just like fucking crooked, and you're like, well, damn it.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a practice thing. So I could see you doing 4 or 5 of these like same blend of cigars, and before you get into the tweaking part as far as the blend, it is. I don't know how much you've done. You answer that for me here, but it's you do on cigar number 1. I put like how many cigars?
2 half leaves and then 2 whole leaves.
What do you got in this one? Do you remember?
It's a double binder, which may also be contributing to the space issue, and then you've got three half leaves and
still keep smoking it.
2 whole.
3 halves and 2 holes.
So have you tried it where you say
4 halves and 1 whole?
Yeah. You've done all that?
I've done a little bit of that, and I've also done just trying to roll them using paper molds, just to basically just to get the blending down.
Explain paper mold to me here.
Basically, you can just use a simple piece of newspaper, is what usually I use to take once you have the bunch, you can go ahead and roll it up in the newspaper, and as long as you get that completely tight and then tie off the ends or tape the ends, you can essentially use it as not a freehand mold, but in lieu of an actual nice polymer or wood mold.
So that's what you would do. You bunch it, and then you put the binder leaf on it, and then the newspaper. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
And then take that off and throw a wrapper on it just to make sure you're getting the flavor and all the different proportions correct.
But again, I'd say with this one, I mean, again, if you're looking for the feedback, it's around the table, myself included, it's the draw. So I mean, I think that's
we all kind of knew that, like going into this.
I didn't. I mean, honestly, I did. I mean,
okay.
For me, I'm looking at it as like I'm not expecting it necessarily. I'd be blown away if it was like, oh my god, the construction is like you need to really get into this industry like right now, and start doing all this stuff and rolling cigars for someone. I'm looking at it as I didn't know if it was going to be too airy. I didn't know if it was going to be tight. I didn't know if it was just going to be okay. I didn't know if there's so many question marks, right? You don't know. But I would say that my biggest thing is that when I got smoke through there, when I used the draw poker, the first couple puffs when I had smoke going, the flavor's actually it's decent. It's a good, straightforward, I'd say medium body. I mean, what do you think, Nate?
I
was thinking that mild to medium, closer to medium.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely smooth. The things that, from a positive standpoint, that I really enjoyed is it's burning evenly.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
You ask a lot of cigar guys. One of the things that pisses them off the most is when a cigar canoes. It doesn't burn evenly. I had one the other night at the shop that had a soft spot in it where it's basically like a tunnel, and one side is soft, the other side's hard. So one side doesn't want to burn, the other side just wants to keep burning all the way down, and you can look down the foot of the cigar and you just see a hole going down it. Don't have that here.
Yeah.
And so to be able to get a good even burn, you don't have any of those holes. I mean that's impressive.
I actually enjoy the flavor quite a bit.
Speak up, please. Talk to the viewers at home.
I actually like the flavor quite a bit, mainly because it runs around what I typically smoke. Usually I'm more on the sweeter side of the complex, so it has that very nuttiness that kind of comes through the palate. And overall, I mean, the aroma that comes from it too is what kind of sells it to me a lot.
Yeah.
Whenever you just get that aroma and you smell it, like, especially when I'm at the bar and I'm smoking around. People are always like, when you have one person that's like, what are you smoking? That smells great. And it's like, that's what I can get from this, is that like, and that's what I've always loved about your hand rolls, is because like the aroma that you come from it, it tastes as it smells.
Yeah.
I pick up that Dominican Ligero on the retro ale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost frustrating because I want to taste it more. You know what I mean? Like I'm
right.
You know,
it's a teaser for sure.
It's a bit of a teaser, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, they say that entubado, one of the reasons that people don't do it is because it's more time consuming and it is harder to do a lot of times because it is something that you're almost rolling every little leaf in there as opposed to just taking it and doing like that accordion style. But the idea is that you get a better draw. And looking at this, it's almost like it on mine when I'm looking down at the head of it where I cut it, it's almost like it should draw. But I'm wondering if it's just kind of pushed together, like you said that it's like too many leaves possibly. You might work that structure out. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think this is something that, I mean, are you taking notes when you're doing this? Is this something that you're doing like, you know, and you almost like label the batches?
Yeah, I do make little notes and have a little notebook that I keep whenever I do this, and so definitely going to be some great feedback from here to take home and just kind of, you know, toy around with a little bit more and try and get that draw down a little bit more and get that figured out.
That notebook might be worth something someday.
Absolutely.
Unlikely, but
you don't know that.
No, that's true. It's like, I mean, it might be like the magician's handbook, and it's like, holy fuck. I mean,
well, and I told you before we even started, you know, so for 20 minutes before we started, before I lit it up, I was just dry drawing through the cigar, and I
had good airflow.
I told him it did have good airflow until put fire to it.
Right.
But I told you, I was like, I can already. You're like, oh, this is probably gonna be the worst cigar you've ever had. I'm like, no, I can tell you right away, this is not gonna be the worst cigar I've ever had. And
where are we at on that?
I was going to say, does that still hold true? Or
yes, that still holds true.
All right.
Sweet. This is nowhere near perfect. I mean, if you take the construction issues and the draw issues out of the cigar, it's got a decent flavor. It's not a very rich, deep flavor, but you taste it, and I mean that's the important thing. I mean, you definitely taste what you're smoking, and it's burning.
Yeah.
Now, isn't like Ligero typically burns longer, right?
Ligero is, I mean, typically tough. Like it's less combustion. I mean, you don't want to typically use like a Ligero for a binder. I mean, part of the binder. What would you say the binder was on this specifically? Dominican.
It's just
Seiko.
Unfortunately, they do not actually label their binders.
They call it just
so
binder.
I would say it's probably closest to Seiko.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you want something that's combustible on the binder because that's kind of that like, you know, it's what keeps it going because you don't want it to just burn in the filler and then like you use Ligero and all of a sudden the wrapper leaf's not burning as much because the binder leaf is just kind of like stunting it almost, you know. So you typically want to use that, and Ligero will be on the filler most of the time. That's what gives it a lot of that strength. And Ligero is more like bitter typically. It's not going to be as flavorful just because it's stronger content in the nicotine and everything else. And it's just it's a heartier leaf. It doesn't burn as well. So it's all those characteristics of that. And on the flip side of that is on the bottom of the plant, very combustible, less flavor. You know, it's not as many nutrients you're getting to that tobacco, so you're going to have those characteristics. How long did you age this? I think, you know, that's what I'm looking at. And this is an episode, I mean, Jake's not on it. We want to talk more about whiskey, but we've got someone that's rolling their own cigars. I'd love to get more information because I'm looking at this because a lot of the viewers, there are a lot of bourbon viewers, there's a lot of cigar viewers, there's a lot of life topic viewers and listeners, and there's also the combination of it. But when you're looking at this, like, first of all, I don't know if you mentioned it before, but what's the age of the tobacco that you're using? Do they list that?
They typically do not list that. There are some batches that they do have harvest years and stuff on.
Okay.
None of the tobacco used in this was aged, or at least listed as aged. The cigars themselves were rolled approximately 72 hours ago when I was told that I need to be ready for Wednesday.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was kind of wondering, you know, because I know you had to rush that drying process of it. I'd be curious to know what these actually smoke and taste like if they go through that proper time after they've been rolled.
And let them sit for like 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done that?
I
or
have.
is it okay.
Yeah, and it does typically produce more flavor than the rush dried show ready variant. But yeah,
it's good flavor though.
It is good flavor. What was that with your cigar?
It's good
I'll
flavor.
translate for
It's good
Leo
flavor.
here.
It's enable closed captioning here. But, yeah. Oh
So I mean, like you're on here, Spenny, and you're basically throwing your artwork out to live testers in front of our audience. I mean,
right.
How are you feeling right now?
I think just about like Jackson Pollock did probably the first time.
Yeah? How's that?
So it's a mess. So no, it's good. It's exciting. I had no idea exactly what would be going on the show since Leo kept me purposely completely in the dark and just said, "Hey, bring some cigars."
Yeah.
And so
you're a good friend.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I'm
good
50-50, very excited, and also thinking maybe I should just take some Opus bands off and brought those in just to see what would have happened. But
I think Steve and I would have been able to be like,
This
that's not right.
This is impressive.
I guess,
It's impressive.
It's like, no, you run your finger down the cigar, like, you know what, that's a lot rougher of a wrapper leaf than what Opus normally has.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Like I said, one of the things that I really enjoy about this cigar that ticks me off, and I know it ticks a lot of cigar smokers off, I have not had to relight this. I've not had to touch it up at all, get one side. I've not had to go to my lighter at all since we lit this up and started the podcast.
I have. I have.
It's been half and half.
But that's what I mean. It's interesting. I mean, shit. I mean, you're talking about, you have cigar smokers that, as Nate mentioned, where you buy an Opus like you just mentioned, and they're pissed off because it burns a little crooked.
Right.
They get annoyed. Like, oh man, this isn't a real Opus, or man, they really lost their touch. And it's like, chill out. Like this is a hand rolled product.
Yeah.
It's hand grown. It's there's so many hands that touch it. I mean, you're talking hundreds of hands like over the life of a cigar, and then on top of that, then it gets transported in cold trucks, hot trucks, like in boxes. Like, come in our shop midday and watch how our typical UPS guy handles. I'm not kidding. It's like the long, dolly that's actually converted down so we can get more boxes on there. Long one. The fucking dolly is like maybe not even a foot off the ground, and he literally just like rolls it off of it. You're like,
have fun.
What are you doing when you're not in the business that you're delivering this to? Like, holy shit, man! Like, why do you have gloves on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not barely touching these packages once they're on the dolly. This is ridiculous.
He's used to flipping tires or something.
Here's your package.
And because we're regular, like stop for them, he doesn't even need to ask for a signature. So it's literally just like, hey, how you doing today? He's like, I got 5.
Cool.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
And then he just gets like, there have been times where he literally, like through the back door of the shop, he cracks it, holds it open with one of our boxes.
Oh.
Yeah. And then it's like, by the time I'm walking back there, it's just like a pile of boxes on their side, kind of on top of each other. And I'm like, I don't even know how you were that messy by the time I walked back here. Like, this is impressive.
Yeah.
It's like that kid, you leave the room and everything's like really neat, or a dog, you know what I mean? Like, everything's really neat.
Right.
You like walk to the bedroom and then you hear something, you're like, I wonder what that was. And it's like fucking like pillows are torn apart. You're like,
tornado.
What the fuck happened in here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm impressed that you could do all this damage in 30 seconds.
Well, and also, you talk about shipping issues. There's a reason why when we get cigars in the shop in December, January, February, we don't put them on the shelf and let guys smoke. We let them sit in the humidor and acclimate because they're basically just icicles at that point.
Yeah, out in the cold.
All right, what got you into this, Benny? Like, why, I mean, like this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time from the very beginning. You're looking into like where to get hey, I want to roll cigars.
Right.
Like, cool. Where the fuck do you get tobacco? That's the question. How do you even start this process? Because when you're getting into a hobby, the biggest thing I think that people don't do is just like businesses, just like any venture you're getting into that you really have an interest in, you don't do the research. Clearly, you've done that.
Right. Yeah. I was when I first got started smoking in 2015. I ended up part of an online message board in several different forums, as well as some Facebook groups, and just kind of tried to glean as much information as I could from them, and found out about the warehouse up in Akron here.
What's that called, if you don't mind sharing?
That is Whole Leaf Tobacco. It's run by, there's also a forum that's run by the same gentleman there. It's Fair Trade Tobacco, which is all about growing, rolling, aging, all that kind of stuff for tobaccos.
Bunch of enthusiasts like yourself.
Right, there are people that actually grow their own tobacco here in the States and then roll those into cigars, which would be the ultimate, pretty cool, seed to smoke type thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there is quite a bit of aging and fermentation, as I'm sure you guys have talked about here on the show prior, regarding tobacco. That is kind of the difficulty between just being able to grow it and then being able to actually turn it into a usable, rollable product.
Yeah.
So is the tobacco that you're getting, like, so a lot of it's been aged. They may not necessarily say when it's been aged.
Yeah.
But it's also been fermented and
Correct.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this is, and just to clarify for listeners, this is tobacco that is grown for cigars.
Yes.
Okay.
This is whole leaf cigar tobacco that is sourced in Nicaragua, in the Dominican, in Connecticut, depending on where and what varietals and stuff that you're looking to purchase. It is shipped to you as whole leaf. Some of it has had the main stem pulled out of it, but for the wrappers, etc., it is just the entire whole leaf that you do need to remove the stems from before you start rolling with it, and it has been completely and properly fermented, so you're not
Having bad product.
worried about having to kiln dry it or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you use, you got a rolling table and everything, or you just do it on a kitchen table? I mean, these are all just I'm trying to walk myself through the process.
Right.
So you got the tobacco, you've already sourced that out. They've been sourced through someone else. So you got the middleman, they're selling it to you.
Right.
You're picking the amounts of which tobaccos, or are they come in kits?
You can get kits. There are a couple of starter kits on both of the major sites there, which, like I said, was whole leaf tobacco, as well as leaf only. And they do also sell some cigarette and other types of tobacco products as well. You can purchase from them, and you just source that. You buy by the pound, by the quarter pound, or you can buy kits if you want to try and just have something that's a little bit pre-made for you that might taste a little bit better than just guessing leaves.
Do you have multiple blends, or is this it?
I do have multiple blends. I know Leo earlier in the year tried some Candela. Tried a Candela wrapper that I had going on there, and the Green Goblin, right, was what we had nicknamed that. Mainly so we could get hit with the trademark and cease and desist from the comics.
Just when you're bored.
Yeah, exactly. That's another great hobby of mine is collecting cease and desist.
Trust me, that happens a lot in this industry.
Yes, right. And so I figured, what's the greatest way to make a name for yourself is probably catch lawsuits from people.
Any press is good press.
Right, exactly.
Isn't the sincerest form of flattery is through imitation?
Lawsuits.
Lawsuits.
That's how they
right.
flatter you with a
Trying to make
a
a positive note.
I mean, because I work.
Jeez.
Because I used to work for a cigar company that both sent out the cease and desist, but then also had some.
They received some.
Yeah. That's why that company I worked for, they had a cigar named this, and then the follow up was a completely different name. It was the same name but in Spanish. Because some other cigar company had already had
Capitulo dos.
There you go. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you guys did. LaFleur did have some ups and downs. It's Misterioso.
You had the Misterioso.
Yeah.
And then it became this. If you look at the box, it's just an acronym. Now it's the cigar formerly known as the Misterioso.
Oh wow! So it's still on there.
Or that's what they had called it, right after that.
Yeah. Now it's the M if they do release. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
This is one of those things you have to change 10% in order to actually still keep it out there.
Well, and the other thing is, there's only so many names for cigars. So you either have to come up with something that just sounds completely crazy, like we talked about with Alec Rubin. You have the Magic Toast.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did that name come from? But there's only so many things you can do.
But you can have a story. You can make up a story to go with any name, right?
Oh,
obviously.
I'm sure it was probably over drinking. It's like toast, and it's like
that was actually the story. Yeah,
oh,
exactly. Yeah.
Magical.
Yeah, it's a magical one.
Magic.
So, Spenny, where do you see yourself taking this? Is it going to stay a hobby? I was actually surprised to hear that how involved you are in the cigar industry, and this is also a hobby.
Yeah.
What do you do full time?
Full time.
Do you work, sir?
I do.
Are you employed?
I do work. Yes, I do earn an honest living. I actually work with schools in the educational technology field, as well as the federal government.
Wow.
So Yeah, so that's what pays the bills, and then all of that disposable income goes towards harassing notable individuals in the cigar industry.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. So
One way to get your name out there.
So you
Master
talk.
blender Spenny.
So you talk about you had this blend, you had that Green Goblin, with the Candela. So you got a couple blends. So kind of to tie on to what Steve talked about before the podcast with the BS Gold, do you have difficulty sometimes getting those tobaccos for your blends?
There is a little bit of scarcity on, especially on wrappers.
Oh yeah,
Depending, but
especially Connecticut.
right,
Broadleaf.
right, and you do watch prices kind of skyrocket, and I mean there is definitely a volatility when it comes to, especially the wrappers and anything that is a U.S. tobacco. They've got Pennsylvania as well as Connecticut, but Connecticut definitely much more so.
Right.
And luckily, most of the tobaccos are stable products that they've been selling for years, so they do have them in sufficient quantities not to go out. And also, I'm not buying them in tremendously.
What volume are you buying?
I have probably about 50 pounds of raw leaf back at the house.
Are you single?
I am
Do you
not
have a roommate? Do you have a
No,
girlfriend?
I do have a
a
girlfriend.
wife?
Yes, who actually went to school with Jake.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So
All right.
that's the weird connection I was
All
hoping
right,
to
there we
pull out of the back pocket tonight. But
Where do you
no.
keep? Like, the reason I ask clearly
Where I
is
keep
because
tobacco to keep her. Is that the no?
Same room.
Same no. Spare bedroom.
Everyone's
is where
humidified properly.
Everyone, Boveda for all your needs. No.
Just throw a bunch of Boveda packs in the furnace. Like, wait, that's bad.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I did that once, and then we tried something
Yeah,
else.
and I thought about getting just tan pillowcases and have the Boveda logo.
Really?
And just
Oh, wow,
have
that's
those. But
No, I just poured David Nicholson,
Yeah.
and it's the difference of doing the Oban earlier before we were
Yeah.
drinking. I was like, oh, I forgot we were doing Scotch. So it was my first sip, and I just sorry.
You're like,
that- anyone want to try that after that? It's gonna be worlds apart.
So it's like jumping in cold water, basically,
It's
or hot water.
it's something. It's different.
Well, I mean, you're going from 86 to 100 proof.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
that'll do it.
Let's go.
But yeah, you're also, you're talking, that David Nicholson, that is a deep, rich,
I mean, just like
flavorful.
There's spice on it, everything. Yeah, it's different. All right. So you keep your cigars and your tobacco and your girlfriend in the same room. You said.
Yeah. Yep. In the spare, no. I do have a spare bedroom that I've converted into just a storage facility for the cigars and for the tobacco.
Well, I mean, when you say you converted it, what do you have going on there? I mean, is it?
It's mostly just a bunch of foam floor mats and then coolers floor to ceiling.
Wow.
Yeah. So before I did the rolling, I basically just tried to poke them on with the cigars that were made by
Gotta
factories.
collect them all.
It was right. Got to catch them all.
Yeah, yes.
And so I unfortunately went way too far into the hobby and into the collecting of cigars, and not enough into the smoking. So now I would probably, live my years out and die 3 times over and still have some to leave to Leo.
Yeah, we know people like that.
No kidding. Do you have like a collection that are currently rolled and aging?
There are a few currently aging, yes.
Yeah.
But not a ton. Unfortunately, my busy season's in the springtime, and so I haven't been rolling as much. We've just hit a slow part here with the summer, like I said, with schools being out, and so hopefully over the summer I'll be able to roll some more and get some just on some aging.
Do you have any like video of yourself rolling?
I'm glad you finished that sentence like that. I was tremendously concerned.
Any video that you have, we'll share.
Video of yourself.
We haven't shared any video on our
lightsaber
Instagram
moves in the
page.
garage.
This now involves graphic content. Click here if you want to view the video.
I'm so sorry.
Do you have any like videos of you rolling
I do.
tobacco, any of that stuff?
No, I would
Dude,
not
you gotta
consider
do that,
myself
man.
to be that, I guess, focused on. I watch YouTube, so I'm not going to video myself like.
I'd be interested to see it. I mean, that'd be so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be happy to do that, and I'll send the show a copy.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Send a VHS over here.
Or we could always have you back on at some point, even like just on a
live
night.
rolling.
Right.
Yeah, do live
I'll
rolling.
sit in the corner, and we'll just have roller cam posted
Just
up
like
top.
that.
Ah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
So are you rolling these like for yourself and friends, or are you actually trying to?
I am rolling them for myself and friends. Thanks to our friends at the FDA, I do not sell, do not distribute. I have never sold any cigars, but just do roll them for friends and to give to Leo so that then he can talk me up and I end up on shows like this. Mostly is so it's just guerrilla exposure, I guess, at this point.
I'm a network enthusiast.
You are. And you're in the voices now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
I've
reached.
Wait, doing voices now.
What marker are we at?
53 minutes. You've done better.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That's
New
great.
benchmark. Perfect.
New benchmark. Yeah, and bottoms up.
Let's go.
All right, I'm gonna save this real quick. Get a little bit more into the topic here. I appreciate you sharing, like all that. I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's fascinating.
Most of it's true. So
most of it's true. You don't have a girlfriend.
No, you figured it out.
All right.
One thing.
You got a dog.
Two truths and a lie. You figured it out.
Did we actually talk about the drying process on these fast rolls?
I don't know that he wanted to go into that because
Okay,
he
never
had to
mind.
rush it for it, but
Okay, never mind.
I mean, it was severely rushed,
Yeah.
like in a dangerous sense, which is what I'm going to go ahead and attribute all of the issues to.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. All right, and as we get into this a little bit more, I mean, as far as the hobby that you're doing, I mean, obviously you're busy at work. You said this is your busy season. You're doing, this on the side, everything else. I mean, we talk about the whole thing, get a hobby. Obviously, the whole topic with this, and it's very much relatable to what you're talking about, and it's something that has clearly captured your interest outside of your job, your relationship, your home, like everything, family, and all that stuff.
Right.
And I think you said dangerously so.
Dangerously so, absolutely.
Dangerous.
Which is fine. You're enthusiastic. I mean, we talk about the bourbon side of it, which we've switched on to the David Nicholson Reserve. I don't want to kill your bottle right now as far as the Oban.
Hey, I mean, I'm fine with that.
All right, we'll kill your bottle of the Oban here.
they cost the same.
They do
Yeah, I was
cost
gonna
the same.
say it's like.
But with the bourbon and the cigars, the whiskey in general, it's something that we've talked about as far as like when these hobbies are just, you got the hobbies, how they're important, the ones that get out of hand, that you are losing your mind, finances, and relationships because of this hobby, and then you have the other side of it, and I'll kind of frame the conversation of the importance of having a hobby. That's what I look at all of this, and like the fact that a hobby can turn into a lifestyle, can turn into a career at times. And if you don't have any of these hobbies, we talk about it. I don't really necessarily go down that road too much, but I mean, I'll introduce it. Is that we've had the podcast before where the importance of having a hobby is legitimately because there are so many people that are having these, what they consider them, mundane lives, mundane existence, because all they are, they wake up, they get ready for work, they go to work, they come home, they, they're
Eat dinner, watch TV.
Watching TV. They're doing yard work, but they don't like doing it. Their home is not in. They don't clean it enough. They're just basically just get in this huge rut, and they have nothing to look forward to. I mean, that's this is something that you're having a bad day. You may not feeling like doing it, but you might go in that spare bedroom and grabbing that tobacco, and you're like, I'm gonna roll a few cigars tonight, put on some music, have a drink, whatever it might be. I'm gonna do that. For me, it's, I play softball, I go to the gym, I, do those things that take up the time out of the day, but it's typically stuff that I look forward to doing. It's going out, hanging out with the guys on softball nights. I mean, what do you guys do, going around the table, like, as far as hobbies? I mean, like, what do you guys look forward to, if at all? Leo, go ahead.
Start off.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So, pretty much a lot of my hobbies, they're either playing video games or illustrating, or even, participating in the hip-hop culture, what is known as breakdancing or b-boying.
B-boying. I was not expecting that.
What, b-boying?
I don't know what that part is, but the whole...
It's a mix.
I forgot you talk about doing, like, breakdancing and stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my, like...
Didn't you see him at the Tenant?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I did. I've seen Leo in public.
There's video.
Wait,
what? He takes video of himself, whereas,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
I've never taken video of myself, but
I'm
sure there's some people.
Mm-hmm.
One of my coworkers actually even recorded me when I was in Nashville, and I was just like, the thing is, okay, so with breakdancing, dance in general, it's a creative outlet, and honestly, creative outlets are needed whoever what you do, and whatever industry that you're actually into. Being able to be creative, no matter what technique that you use, is always something that's always good for, hence the soul, I guess.
Good for the soul.
Yeah, and mainly with breakdancing, there's a creative aspect where I'm able to dance to an emotion, depending what song it may be, and I actually enjoy that. It's a good release because if I've had several terrible weeks at work, usually I'll listen to something that would be more melodic or even harmonious, and I match my my movement with that song. And honestly, it's almost like a good stress reliever when it comes down to it. It's almost like when a painter is actually able to paint his feelings on a canvas or even a sculptor who's able to actually just chisel away to something something that would be beautiful. I mean, I guess through life's detriments, you're able to create something beautiful, and that's something that I've always been very forward on as a message, because life is tough. And honestly, you might have it good, you might have it bad, but if you're able to creatively, put yourself out there in that aspect, I think it's a good sense of release rather than repressing it, through time and time. Because the moment that you begin repressing it is the time it starts to build up and fester and become something more detrimental, and hence lead to depression and anxiety. So that's why I still like painting and I still like dancing every so often. Eventually, at one point in my life, I'd like to participate in Red Bull BC1, which is Red Bull Breakdance Competition 1.
Wow.
And it's one of the events I've always wanted to travel internationally just to participate. Or
Where do they hold that?
It's all over the place. Last year, their finals took place in Japan, but it's a traveling community, and that's why I've always loved about it. Even now, this weekend, there is a jam, as they call it, a jam where everybody gets together from all sorts of areas of the world and participate. And I gotta look it up, unfortunately, but it's taking place this weekend. I'll go back to that, but ultimately it'd be nice to just participate, because the four elements of hip hop is DJing, b-boying, or breaking.
What is it? B-boying?
B-boying.
Explain that to
it stands for beat boy. So basically, you just rock with the beats, and you're able to dance to it.
Okay.
It was just a term that
Nate,
was
did you know that?
No.
Spenny?
I had heard the term. I did not know what the full definition was.
I love it.
Yeah,
I can do the electric slide in the Macarena.
You do a good mean two-step.
I do
also,
a great two-step.
Like all the time.
Yeah. When I'm in the shop, I'll just sit there.
Just listening to Nat King Cole and just doing two-step.
You can do it.
Well, the shop I used to work at used to have a lot of parties, like 2-3 a month, that would always have a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go down to the lounge just to empty the ashtrays. And everyone's like, "Hey, Nate, dance." I'm like, this is it.
That's it.
Like Will Smith in Hitch. Yeah. This home base is all I got right here.
That's it. Yeah.
That, and I was like, if you play the electric slide,
right.
the shop I used to work at, the electric slide wouldn't go over too well.
Yeah.
I'd be the only person doing it.
I don't
care.
care.
Enthusiastically.
I would,
yeah,
because I don't just do the side. No, I actually do a full 360 to each side.
Oh man.
And then back. Oh yeah.
But, I mean, like,
a little bit of custom.
But that's one of those things. Is like song and dance is basically a good outlet for people to actually just get into the music and actually, not really put emotions out there, but at the same time, just either be happy or sad and express yourself through just movement.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've always gotten into. But one of the things is that everybody runs into is where work actually kind of takes over in some aspects, and that happens with everybody. So one of the things that kind of popped in my head was, if you do what you enjoy, you never have to work in a day in your life. And it is true, but it's also there's a half glass full and a half glass empty perspective based on that. Now, here's one take where basically your hobby becomes your full-time job. You start losing that passion, which can or cannot happen. It really depends on the situation, but that can happen where you kind of lose that passion of your hobby because it becomes a job. And that's one of the things that I've always been fearful of in my life, even to this day, that, you know, where my passion could actually truly, you know, detriment me, where I'd actually be like sick of it, where it's like, oh fuck, I have to go, well, let's just take dancing for example. Oh, I have to go to this show and I have to perform and I don't have the energy to do it, you know, and there could be many other factors that could associate with that.
I think a job always going to become a job. So work will always be work.
Yeah, and that's
so
what
I think you run that risk, obviously, anytime you get into an industry that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, and that's what I'm always afraid of getting into an industry that I'm like really passionate about, is that like I don't want to lose my passions, mainly because I don't want it to become a job. Like I want it to still be the passion that I, you know, grew up with and, you know, nurtured to this day. And honestly, you know, fear is something that often holds us back on many aspects. It's almost self-inflicted, personally or even, you know, career-wise. And like honestly, yeah, this is one thing that I've always been very profound about is never fear failure. Because the thing is, like, failure of losing that passion or failure of actually doing poorly, as long as you're doing what makes you happy, I think that's the most important part, whether it be your hobby or not. So
that's a lot, man.
It's a very deep situation that I
you definitely took that in a big direction.
Yeah, I mean, like that's one of those things.
So you don't want to be a professional
artist or
was it
b-boy dancer? Let's just say dancer.
You don't think you'd want to be a professional dancer?
I feel like they would just be on the road all the time, and I wouldn't have time to actually spend time with my friends and family.
Yeah, I mean, there's drawbacks to anything, right? I mean,
there's a catch-22. Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of hobbies, they cost money.
Mm-hmm.
They cost money, so I mean, this is something. I mean, like, you have 50 pounds of tobacco sitting in your home right now.
Yes.
That wasn't free.
It was not. No, unfortunately.
So I mean, yeah, there's drawbacks to it, but I mean, again, like I like what you said, that whatever, you know, like if it makes you happy, you know what I mean. That's something where. And
it could be a newfound passion too. I mean, it doesn't always have to be something that you've actually grown up with. I mean, like woodworking is something that people usually like attain around like the 30s or even like 40s, and like when you're able to actually like get into that, like you might not be perfect at it, but I think the overall fulfilling, I would say, process that everybody gets is that when you're actually learning something and you're constantly being challenged to do something new. You know, with b-boying, there's a lot of people who have different styles. You're still up.
The name of it.
Just every time he hears it.
Breakdancing. With breakdancing, there's a lot of people who have the similar style, and like there's a lot of people who've actually had a cornerstone style that often wins competitions, etc., etc. And like people want to actually express themselves in newfound ways, where you know you have a new move, you know, such as like, you know, a gremlin, even though the gremlin's actually been around for quite some time.
Wasn't that an 80s movie?
There was an 80s movie.
Don't water that.
It was also
don't water that.
Also a car.
The gremlin is a move where basically you're kind of like twisting your legs around like over like somewhat of a mild handstand in some aspects. So
sounds difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, another thing that I like about
Dustin's face right now behind the camera is just
I'm just trying to imagine this, and all I'm picturing is a neck brace.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, I mean, the three of us got like at least 70 to 100 pounds.
I'm pretty sure I have at least 100 on Leo.
So the thing is, it's really just about balance and muscle memory, and there is a good amount of conditioning that goes into breakdancing. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, the moment that I'll do a life example, basically I haven't conditioned myself for a long time, and I tried doing a handstand or a quote-unquote freeze, where I just hold myself in a one-hand handstand.
I know that one.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie Breakin'.
But yeah, like ultimately, you know, I ended up dislocating my arm, and I had to go to the hospital.
Going to work. You went into work the next day, yeah?
No, actually, it was actually kind of funny because the whole time I was like, you know, typically I drive with my left hand, so the whole time I had to like, you know, use the shifter with my left hand. I was like, well, this is a little bit foreign, but you know, overall I can work it. Yeah, that would have been bad.
Look at the positive.
I thought you were gonna say it was a stick shift.
But even then, you know, with those detriments, I'm still very passionate about. Like even then, there was a point in time where I had a boxer's fraction, you know, and This would be called the metacarpal,
Sure.
I believe, in anatomy standards.
Sure.
And I actually fractured my metacarpal because I ended up slamming my fist into a wall at one point.
That's why you call it a boxing thing? Yeah, you're boxing a wall.
They called it a boxer fraction.
Yeah.
So they gave me...
Who are you hitting? What do you mean?
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
You punch the wall, it does punch back.
Yeah.
And you patch it. And you patch it.
And at that point, they gave me a splint. So, like, throughout college, I had to start drawing with my left hand.
No shit.
And
which is another hobby of yours.
Yeah,
drawing.
exactly.
Yeah,
and that was one of the things that it was a challenge to overcome. And it was very fascinating because a lot of people actually told me that my work was actually a lot better doing my left hand or using my left hand rather than my right hand.
Shit, I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah. But at the same time, like...
Thanks, genetics.
Yeah.
Fucking make me think I'm right-handed this whole time. Yeah, fuck you. Wait, no.
No, use your left hand, buddy.
Exactly.
Like, could you imagine Jordan all of a sudden going out on the court and shooting left-handed? I mean,
He probably.
He would still probably
Yeah, I
be
mean, it wouldn't be as good.
no.
If anyone can do it, probably him.
Yeah.
He would still be able
Probably,
to
yeah.
try to do it.
I like that. So the terms that I'm hearing from you are obviously happiness.
Yes.
Right? You're talking about passion, which is great. And so one of the reasons I like this topic, those two words, and then you also went into something that I thought was very interesting.
Fear.
Fear is another one, but almost fear of making it become too much of your life. So you know, you also threw in that age old like entrepreneur type thing. You know, if you're doing what you love, then you're not working a day of your life, right?
Yeah.
But it may not always apply to that's what you're doing for a living. But if you can still do what you love, you still find the time to do what you love, but you still have a day job that pays the bills, that, you know what I mean, you're making good money, and you like it. I mean, if you hate your job, that's one thing. But I mean, if you can tolerate it, or you actually enjoy the people you work with, if you like the company, you like what you're doing, it's in a field of interest or you know, whatever it might be, you like going to work the majority of the time, as opposed to the majority of the time you just dread going to work.
Yeah.
You're talking about the fact that you can still actually have that passion, that happiness, and there's also the flip side for your viewpoint is that where you're going away from what you might be thinking might be something that leads towards anxiety. That's where something full blown goes the other way, where it's like if your hobby or your passion turns into your livelihood, it's almost like you lose some of that passion. It might seem like that's always the best thing, is to do what you love, in a sense that if you can do your hobby or do your interest and make it your passionate career. There are plenty of people that actually really do well at that, but I think there's a lot of people like you, I think that no one talks about, is that I don't want my hobby. I want it to be my alone time. I want it to be my side, my side work,
gig,
if you will, or side gig, where if you make money off it, great. But I mean, at the same time, this is your escape. This is something that if you do all this stuff, now you have to find, hopefully, if you do have a career that is more your passion, your hobby that it used to be, hopefully then you can add new hobbies to it.
Yeah, and that's where...
Which I like what you're saying there.
Perspective comes in your work, honestly, what we're being paid for. And like the thing is, it's a growing opportunity. Not many people always see it. Everyone always sees it as just like being a moneymaker. And honestly, like when you're actually able to grow for something that you're uncomfortable with, that you're not really typically used to, is, you know, something that you can actually take into your account of what you do like and what you don't like. We're all growing as human beings, you know, whatever passions and, you know, wants and needs, and being exposed to that uncomfortable situation shows how you can actually accommodate challenge or even grow from it.
Yeah.
And when you're able to actually grow from any kind of challenge, I think that's the most important aspect, because complacency is almost the atrophy of the soul in the sense, or atrophy of
Sure. You got it.
Because ultimately, like, if you're complacent all the time, you're not growing, you're doing the same thing over and over, and that's when it becomes monotonous. When you're able to actually go into something new, where it's like, you know, hence, you know, drinking different types of alcohol that I typically would not drink. I mean, tequila is a killer for me because I'd be like, bleh. But exactly like.
No, I got it. Yeah.
Not on the carpet.
Yeah, not on the carpet.
Yeah, it's fucking new
God,
carpet,
you guys
man.
talk to me like as if I'm a cat. Not on the carpet.
Yeah. You make cat noises.
But overall, I mean, being complacent is somewhat of an atrophying attribute that anybody can attain. Like, honestly, you always want to keep learning, and you always want to keep growing, and also be uncomfortable. It's nothing wrong to actually be uncomfortable in a situation. I mean, there's certain times where you want to be comfortable. Of course, everybody in the world wants to be financially comfortable, but at the same time, sometimes if you have all the money in the world, I mean, this is probably why a lot of millionaires kind of, well, not a lot, but I'm sure a few have kind of ran into this situation where they're just like, I have everything that I could possibly want. Like, there's no challenge anymore. Like, when you don't have that struggle, like, what else is there? And that's the end point at that.
It's fair. Nate, how about you? Like, hobbies, like, when you talk about get a hobby, like, what do you, you work all the time. So Nate works full time. He also works part time at the cigar shop. More often, like most people, but even more so, you're working during your waking hours. Mm-hmm. What are your actual nights off? Time off?
Sunday after 12.
Period.
So before I was working at Tinder Box, because I've worked in the cigar industry in Columbus for the last 7 years, mm-hmm. and the shop I first started out at, for the last year plus that I was there, I was working at that shop Monday through Friday from 4:30, 5 o'clock till close, and then I was working there all day, open to close on Saturday. So Sunday was really my only day off, but I also do stuff on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, you do sound for your church, right?
I'm the audio visual director at my church.
Do you have a business card for that?
No, I have a little
big AV.
A lanyard.
Yeah, with name tag. Yeah. I don't
Do
wear
you ever flash that, like, for like
I don't even wear it anymore.
Clearance into other rooms of the church?
I don't even
I
wear
feel
it
like there should be a vest that just says like V and
Sir,
A.
you can't be back here. This is for the pastors. Like, all right, calm down there.
Well, that works because my stepdad is the pastor.
Oh,
so, but no,
someone got a job because of their. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah, they needed help. That's why I'm doing it. All right.
Yeah. All of a sudden they start church and like, hey, we want you to run the sound. Okay, cool. 10 years later, still running sound.
Yeah, you're a young guy. You know technology. Come here for a second.
No,
You're helping out this Sunday.
It's funny you say that because there are a lot of Sunday mornings I'll start, because where we're at, we actually rent out a school cafeteria.
Okay.
So we have to set up and tear down every Sunday.
Jeez.
And what's funny is one of the other guys in the church, his oldest son just finished kindergarten, and I'll be setting stuff up. So you got the speaker, you got the portable soundboard that all the mics plug into. Yeah. I'll unplug a mic. I'll hand him a cable. I'm like, hey, this is the blue one for the pastor. Where does it go? And he's like, channel 1. I'm like, all right, this is
Is it kindergarten?
Yeah, this
is it 6?
Yeah,
K through 5.
6 years old.
Jeez.
And I'm like, hey, this is Derek's mic. He goes, oh, that goes into 6.
As he looks up from his iPad and iPhone.
No.
Like, yeah, Nate, I got you.
No, he just
it's like tapping in.
No, he's remembered it. I mean, so.
No, I know. I'm saying like he's multitasking with technology at this point. You know what I mean? Like that's what I envision.
Yeah. I have 3 hobbies that occupy my time.
A hard 3.
Pretty much 3 hobbies.
All right.
There's whiskey.
I love how drinks are now hobbies.
No, well,
it's not drinking. It's like literally like whiskey.
So
it's being a connoisseur.
Before I started working at Tinder Box, I drank whiskey. I had a few bottles.
Right.
You guys started the podcast.
Don't do that.
And all of a sudden, you guys started the podcast, and all of a sudden I've got 30 bottles at home because
what up, bud?
And now I'm going out and like, oh, there's a barrel release of this Woodford Reserve. Hey, Sean, can you cover me for the first 2 hours?
Nate's standing in line for bottles now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So whiskey, cigars. I started smoking cigars when I was in college, so that's been going on now for 15 years. And I've been working in the industry for 7. So I've worked in I've worked in 3 different cigar shops. I used to be a rep for a cigar company. So that's one of those where hobby turns into a career, turns into a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work at the Tinder Box.
And you've seen positives and negatives based on what Leo was saying, as far as when your hobby becomes a job, and then the job becomes a job, and then
there's a lot of people,
job becomes a bad job, or you have those stresses that you may or may not enjoy the hobby anymore. You've seen all sides of that.
There's a lot of cigar guys, and it's mainly younger, that they get into cigars, they really enjoy it. They go to the events, they see the rep, they see all the good time and everything. Like, man, I would love to have your job. Because I remember being that way. I thought cigar reps were, the rock stars.
Rock stars, absolutely.
Everyone knows who you are. You get to travel.
Spenny's felt that before too.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
but just a tad.
You get to travel. You get to travel to all these different cigar shops. You get to go to Nicaragua, to Dominican Republic, and visit cigar factories and farms. And they're like, man, it'd be great to be a cigar rep. And they get in a cigar rep and like, shit, this sucks. Like, all I do is drive.
I had Rob from Rocky Patel. He's been on before, and he wants to get back on here. But he went on vacation, just like any other job, right? And he loves doing what he's doing. He's got a great company he loves working for. He's always big smiles, you know what I mean? But even today, he's been on the road for 9 days straight, which may not seem like a lot to someone, but it's like, remember the time when someone asked you to like, hey, you may or may not have plans this weekend, and I know you work Monday through Friday, but I'm gonna need you to work Saturday and Sunday, and it's like fucking the end of the world. Fuck this place. I'm out. I'm gonna burn this building to the ground. You know what I mean? This is unheard of, and it's like this dude's on the road nine days straight, and it's all over the place, like you said. And he's just like, dude, I'm just fucking tired.
Yeah.
He's still smiling, you know what I mean? But it's like that's where it becomes a job.
So when I was on the road, I didn't have any. Even though I had a much bigger territory than what Rob does, I was never away from home on the weekends. I always drove back home on Fridays. I always worked my schedule around to where I was heading home on Fridays. But for the time I was doing that, I was averaging 5,000 miles a month of windshield time. And then,
honey, I'm home.
And then the bad thing was I'd get home late Friday night, and then Saturday wake up. My wife's like, "All right, what do you want to go do today?"
I want to sleep.
No. Worse than that. I wake up Saturday morning. She's like, "Hey, what do you want to do today?"
I want to die.
I want to go hang out at the cigar shop.
Because now that was so interesting. Because now you're looking at it where your hobby has become your job, but the job is the job. And you still
enjoy the hobby.
Well, you differentiated cigars, from work, and then you're like, how'd she feel about that?
Well,
not happy from the.
We talked.
Yeah,
we had a conversation.
I mean, if the right opportunity came up, she'd like me to go back to doing that. But at that time, it was like, you've been gone for 5 days, because I would leave about 8 o'clock Monday morning. And I'd come home, sometime between 8 and midnight Friday night.
Yeah.
So the entire week she hasn't seen me, and what do I want to do? Tinder Box at Easton was one of the shops I'd go to on Saturday.
Naturally.
And what did I do when I came in there? I brought my cooladors.
Yeah.
my 2 cooladors.
Oh, right.
Put them in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I'd hang out there, and the guys that were working Saturday, like, oh yeah, you should try this cigar. By the way, we have the rep for them in here.
Yeah,
and if you buy like 3 of his cigars, he'll give you one. And so even on my days off, I was kind of working.
It's like now when you hang out at the Tinder Box, still as an employee of it, it's like I've been in there plenty of days off or after I'm off, and it's like you did that to me. I'm sitting in the back, I'm like in gym's clothes.
It was like a week before. It was like a week before Christmas. We had a couple come in, and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going? How can we help you?" And the guy goes, "I want to talk to the most knowledgeable person here." I just turned around and went, "Hey, Steve, this guy's got a question for you."
Yeah.
Steve, give him a
I'm not the most knowledgeable person in the shop, but it was like, hey.
And the guy's like, "Yeah, my father-in-law is an asshole, and I want to give him some cigars that he doesn't have." His wife's standing right next to him.
Yeah.
My father-in-law is an asshole.
He's an asshole.
They've been shopping and drinking, and not necessarily in that order.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which is why it's great to be at a high-end retail establishment. And be a cigar shop.
I don't care. Just give me.
But it worked because the guy's like, I want to get him something he doesn't have, and Steve. I was going to recommend the BS because the Tinder Box Easton's
it's a
you
rarity.
get the BS.
Which is BS for this story purposes and for reality. $8.95, $9.95, or $10.95. Go on.
Yes.
Bam.
And that's what I was going to recommend. And that day we'd gotten some Xeno.
4 hours earlier, I
Yeah.
unloaded
Xeno
it.
Platinum.
Xeno Z Crowns.
Oh, wow.
And Steve goes, well, we got $100 Xeno.
And he was like, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was like, I bet he doesn't have that.
And it comes in a 3-count box. And the guy's like, cool, I'll take one. He didn't even look at it. He's like, cool, I'll take one. So I cracked the box, nice lacquer, high gloss, thick wood box.
Yeah.
Only holds 3 cigars. I take one out, and the guy's like, what can I do to get that box? I'm like, well, we got to keep the other 2 cigars in the box. He's like, hey, can we get all 3? He looks at his wife, like, hey, can we get all 3? She's like, yeah, sure. And boom. So
I think it was more fine.
that was
her
it.
response. Not, yeah, sure, honey.
Yeah, so
Fine.
yeah, so Steve's day off.
Yes, you can
he
buy the
still
boat.
sold- Steve's day off, he still sold $300 worth of cigars.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
And then-
That's called reading the audience.
Yeah. So I got whiskey, I got cigars, and guns.
I feel like
Yeah.
being a tobacconist that you have to have that certain cadence in order to actually present a product.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're almost being a presenter, and it's like, do you like this product or do you
Well,
like that?
and I can tell you from experience, there is a big difference between working in a cigar shop and selling customers
Yes.
on a cigar
Yes.
versus being a rep and trying to get shops to buy cigars from you.
That's what I think.
There's a huge difference between those two.
Yeah.
I can sell cigars to anybody that walks in the store, but they're coming to buy a cigar.
Yeah.
When I was on the road and I went to a cigar shop, that shop may not be in a position to
Take your product.
to purchase 10 boxes or bring on something new, a new line or an old line, or expand what they have.
Yeah.
They may not have the room, they may not have the
sell.
money. It may be a cigar that they, Steve's had ran into this in all his time. It may be a cigar that, yeah, we carried that before, it didn't sell well, don't want to bring it in again. Or, we had a rep a few weeks ago from a company that I won't name, great guy, they make good cigars, and come in and it's like, yeah, you guys make good stuff, but one, look at the wall, where are we going to put it?
Yeah.
And 2, okay, we got to replace, your cigar has to replace something on the wall. What's something on the wall that your cigar is going to outsell? Tinder Box carries a ton of the big name brands.
Yeah.
So in order to bring on a little guy, you have to kick out one of the bigger names. And it's like, yeah.
That's a risk. That's a risk and reward.
There's only so much space.
Yeah.
Go back. So hobbies, right? So yours has been a little bit of an overlap there, obviously, with cigars. Whiskeys you typically are doing together.
Yeah.
Right. With
Well,
cigars.
by myself at home. But.
I think you trailed off making that sound so bad.
Well, it's one of those.
It's definitely a hobby by myself at home.
Yeah,
I trailed off. I drank in the dark room, and no
both
one loved it, my wife included.
Both the cigars and the whiskey, they're one of those things that, I dabbled in before.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I hit one point, kind of like Eric was talking about, because Eric's only been smoking cigars for 4 years. Now he makes his own cigars.
Dude, that's a quick turnaround.
There are times where I've had certain hobbies where I started it and I just went all out, balls to the wall.
Yeah.
Like when I first took up paintball. I went out, bought my own paintball gun.
I think that's very interesting.
I bought a $150 gun. I bought a $60 hopper, a $60 mask. All the reload tubes, chest protector, throat guard, all this stuff. And I was playing. Oh, trust me, you get hit by a paintball in the throat.
I can imagine. That's why I kind of cringed.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh yeah. It's
That throat
Wearing a
guard.
cup in baseball.
Yeah, I wear. Yeah, and I wear.
A balls.
Yeah, you can hit.
My arm's
Basically,
apple.
when I would play paintball, you could hit me just about anywhere, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I got hit. Other
Didn't
guys
know
are
you
like,
got hit.
How about cheat?
Right.
but it was just one of those things where I went full bore, and I think in a period of about 2 weeks, I spent like $700 on paintball gear because I just got that into it.
How many times had you gone paintballing before this?
How many times have you gotten hit in the throat?
Before that, I'd probably gone paintballing half a dozen times.
Weird.
And then once I started getting into it, I had some friends and we would go twice a month that I'd play, but then, you know, I had an aftermarket barrel. I'd have to go get a case of ammo, and that ammo was not the same quality ammo that you buy at Walmart. And I mean, so it was just one of those things. I started up and I just went all into it. My stepdad has that same kind of addictive personality. Like, he can't drink Faygo Red Pop because if he starts, after a week, his tongue's just going to be permanently bright red.
That's one of the...
You know.
So there's a little bit of that addictive personality, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that is an issue when it comes
hobbies
to
can become an addiction.
Yeah, which I touched on, right? I mean, there's something where we talk about it on this. We have talked about it as far as like the bourbon cigars, the collectors, and all that stuff. It's one of those things where
you start out, you're buying a bottle of whiskey every now and then. Next thing you know, you're waiting in line, for barrel releases.
And that's one of
on a Friday morning, or with cigars, you start out, you smoke a couple cigars a month or something. Next thing you know, you're going down to Cuba and buying a crap ton of cigars and bringing them back. Or with guns, you start out, you go to the range a couple times. Next thing you know, you got 5 handguns, 2 shotguns, a rifle, and you're buying $1,000.
Or you have a helicopter destroyer called a Barrett, 50 cal.
So, well, yeah, I mean, it's any of these hobbies. I mean, you can go full bore, and again, it's like you can't lose yourself in it. You can't necessarily. People that have the funds to collect cigars, collect guns, do all this stuff, and they're just like, this is play money to them. As soon as you start racking up credit card debt to buy bottles, to buy cigars, to book the trips, and do all these life experiences, you're like, oh, you only live once, like, this is worth it. And it's like, yeah, but you hopefully are going to live longer than next weekend.
I had a cousin that, so how with a lot of your, phone games, they have in-app purchases where you can buy lives, or you can buy upgrades and stuff. I have a cousin that went into credit card debt buying with in-app purchases.
Microtransactions?
20 grand.
Oh my goodness.
20 grand in credit card debt.
Here's
what game is that?
I don't know. I hope it wasn't Candy Crush or something like that, but that was one of those.
Just be better.
I mean, that was one of those where his brain kind of got shut off because he just went all in.
Well, it's play money too. Like, it's like, oh, this is just you double tap it or you hold your fingerprint on it, all that stuff.
What play money for him? He didn't have 20 grand to.
No, I'm saying it's play money because you're in the middle of the game and you don't look at it and it's like, oh, $99. That's all right, no big deal.
There's no emotion attached.
Yeah, it's like swiping your card. You know what I mean? Like you have that on there. You have 20 grand of credit card limit.
Well, and there have actually been studies done where they've hooked purchase, people that were buying something up to brain scans and whatnot. And I think it was John Hopkins that did the study. Mm-hmm. And people that were buying with a credit card where it's just like the RFID chip, like with an Apple Pay or something like that, there's just nothing there. When they would actually use it as a debit card, something kind of registers in their head.
Yeah.
When they actually bought with cash, their brain registered it as pain.
Yeah.
and they found that people that use a credit card or use the chips and stuff buy anywhere from 12 to 24% more. Mm-hmm. They spend that much more money than someone who pays cash because there's an emotion and there's a feeling attached to it.
Yeah, because they feel like it's almost like it's expendable money when it comes down to it. And here's the note that I actually want to get to it is that hobbies, yes, they should be accentuated. It brings life and fulfillment to our lives, but there's also an amount of mindfulness that you have to take on.
There has to be balance.
Agreed, and that's the point I'm getting with, is that with balance, like the thing is, I smoke tobacco pipe as well, and one of the biggest addictions that people have actually told me is that it's not the tobacco that really actually is detrimental, it's the collecting of pipes. And these pipes are actually, $100, $200. And like, granted, yeah, you should invest in a pipe that you would actually enjoy quite a bit. But there's a certain mindfulness of like, should I actually spend that money in order to actually have this pipe? What is the actual benefit? I mean, if it's a, mental benefit or even a mindful benefit where it's like, this will make me happy, I actually enjoy this, and if I have the expenses, I can actually pursue on that. there's some people who might actually, dig deep dive into debt. And I really said that.
Say Dodge a wrench.
Well, I went on a lot of like.
Is there anything else on that?
I went on alliteration at that point. Dip down, debt. But basically, that's one of those things that you have to be mindful in what your hobbies are, and you do have to actually have a certain amount of control, because the moment that you actually don't have control is when it becomes more of a nightmare than a dream.
Well, it's balance, right?
And it's not just the financial or monetary spending. It's also the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing. A lot of hobbies, they don't just cost money; they cost time.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
Time that you could be spending with family and friends.
Yeah, but there's some that hopefully there are the hobbies, there's the escapes where it's just you, right? I mean, there's that aspect of it. There's also the ones that you can do with a significant other. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to even cost money. You go on a walk, all that stuff. If you're into that, that's fantastic. Hiking, all that stuff. But even if you get into more extreme hiking, you want to go on a vacation, that starts costing money. It's not just going on a walk on the trail.
You're going to national parks out west.
There is that, and I mean, I think
that Colorado.
That's what I like about this. And Tyler next week wants to talk about more of the cigar community, which we'll branch into that and the values of that kind of a community, and then bringing this, why this is the way it is, and we've talked about that over episodes in the past. But I mean, there's chances are that you will meet new people. You know what I mean? So that time spent is something where it's not, and everyone works differently, but if you get into guns, you know what I mean? It's like now you're meeting people at the store where you're purchasing them. You start talking to people like on forums and stuff like that, where you were like talking about.
Oh, I've got a whole list of friends.
Yeah, Spenny's talking about, that's how he got into the cigar rolling. I mean, he starts getting passionate about it, and then you start meeting like-minded people. You start getting into these things. You create new relationships. So sometimes it actually breeds new experiences, new people in your life.
It's meaningful. There
is actually something that you're opening yourself up. You know what I mean? It's not just, you don't always have to do it just by yourself or and recreate it. You know what I mean? I like that part about the hobbies, is that it can be a social thing, and it doesn't always have to be an escape from your family, like Leo was saying. I mean, that can happen, but a lot of times if you do it in a way that this is something that is expanding your everyday life, hopefully you have the sense
I was gonna say we're prolonging it, but that's different.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you have the want, you have the desire to include people in the hobby. You know what I mean? You have that like-mindedness,
the inclusiveness or inclusive nature.
I mean, like it's a society type thing. It's a subculture. It's whatever it might be.
I have the half-empty statement perspective on that. So with communities, I mean, granted, it is a best thing to actually get yourself entailed with, mainly because you share a like-minded passion with everybody else. But unfortunately, there are times where people establish a hierarchy, and that's one of those things. It's been known in the anime convention scenes. I watched Japanese cartoons
with this.
Japanese cartoons, and where people actually have a certain stature where they try to present themselves higher than other people, therefore that they're better. And like honestly,
that never happens in the cigar
or the bourbon one.
But again, it can happen to certain communities and what hobbies that you get into.
Well, it's where you take it, right? I mean, it's how far down that rabbit hole you go as far as that sense of, as soon as you get enough people involved, like you're talking about the anime thing, bourbon, cigars, rolling, guns, all that stuff. It doesn't. I mean, like at first it's a innocent hobby, interest, you're learning and all that stuff. Then it evolves. Then you have more people. You have more experienced people. Then you have, say, 100 members of a group. Then you have 200. Then you have 1,000. At some point, we talked about that with some of the bourbon groups in the past episodes and even off the air. It's people evolve at different levels, right? It's not just about what bourbons, what cigars, what.
I drink Pappy Van Winkle every day.
Or whatever it is, but it's but to do a group, to make, like, if you want to start growing it, you have certain people that want to do more work. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the bourbon side of it, and a lot of people that listen to this, they have been a part of it. It's not just about grabbing those bottles, but it's like, so now you're in a group and you want to take this hobby to the next level. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do our own barrel pick? And if you have 100 people say, yeah, it would be. And then a week later, it's like, hey, is anyone interested? Yeah, I'm interested. And then another week goes by. It's like, at some point, someone needs to take leadership, or at least say, hey, okay, I've looked into this. Or even the step of, hey, I want to do this. Can I get 3, 4, 10 individuals of this group to kind of meet off, and as far as off the main thing, we'll start a subcommittee so that we can make this happen for everybody. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But to your point, there are times it evolves in a very cliquey manner, and then it's like, well, no, these guys are just doing whatever they want, and then because there's no real formality
and
there.
That's where leadership actually plays a large role. A lot of people often think that leadership does not actually play a role in many communities. Leadership actually plays a very large role, because the thing is, a good leader would actually be able to actually, present a lower standing person and bring them up. That's the point of a leader is, you're able to actually have someone who's actually, at the bare bones of everything and bring them up. It's like, hey guys, I got this new thing to try. Rather than trying every, I would say, exclusive product that's out there, and it's just the same shit all over again.
Sometimes groups and hobbies, you got to find your own place, and I think that sometimes when you're doing that and you don't go, so that was my whole thing with the some aspects of the cigar, but especially the bourbon. I was into it. I love learning about it. I love hanging out with these guys and girls that are doing it. But as soon as it went beyond that and they started wanting to do all that stuff, that was where I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not trying. Like, it is a hobby. It's an interest. It's not the passion that you guys have developed. I'm not going to drive all over, spend my time trying to find these bottles, doing the barrel picks. Yeah, I'd love to do it if it's available. I'm not going to invest my time. I don't have that level of interest.
Yeah.
But I also have, maybe it's where I'm at in my life, is that I'm not offended by it, but if you start treating people differently, you start treating me, that's fine. It's like, cool, man, like, I'm out. Like, that's cool. Like, good for you guys. You guys have overextended yourself in my level of interest. I'm just going to take a back seat. You want me to stay involved, observe, and hang out? Cool. But I'm not going to take a leadership role. But I'm also not offended by that. Some people are offended by that when it gets to that hobby thing.
When their stature is actually being attacked in some aspects.
Yeah, there's ego there. Yeah.
Some people have a personality about them where they try to ascend to that point where they kind of control.
And I'm going to segue on
immediately as soon as you said that.
Well, no, I was actually I was trying to include you in this because that was your whole thing. I mean, I'm shocked that you started smoking cigars 4 years ago. Now you're rolling your own. You've joined all this stuff. You're talking about how you're going to be at the IPCPR when it comes to now you're going as a booth. Matt booth and booth.
Working the booth, right.
Yeah, working the booth. Yeah. Where last year you were there with a retailer, like you are finding your way. Your passion, your interest, everything else, and you are putting your time into it because you are getting to that point.
Right.
But one thing I've heard you not say is that you are wanting to get into the industry full time.
That is correct. Yes. Perhaps due to our favorite 3-letter organization or just a general thought that I should stay grounded in a day job.
Yeah. Oh, so the industry as a whole. I'm not saying like roll your own cigars, start your own company. I'm saying like start with like Room 101, which is on your T-shirt, which is where you're going to be. So for those of you, Room 101 used to be with.
Look at that image. Room 101.
Yeah, it used to be with Camacho. Then Davidoff purchased all that. Matt Booth was involved in that. He backed away. Room 101 backed away with it, which was a great thing to see that they actually were able to work that out. Now he's working with Caldwell Cigars, which is also involved with Davidoff. It's very much inbred, but to see that you're very much involved in that as far as that goes. But when you say that, you're holding back because of outside threats of the industry, that you don't want to like start working for Room 101 or start working in the retail side or be a cigar rep.
Right. I mean, if Matt's watching, I would love to work for Room 101. But
there you go.
Just in general, I think that the balance of having a solid day job and then having perhaps too much time to pursue my hobbies is a good balance for where I'm at.
Do you have a backup or a background plan where you might actually be working towards something where you might have a shift?
As in
moving into the cigar industry.
I think that would be spectacular. Right now, I'm just sort of trying to take in as much information as I can and sort of wait and see where things go on a federal level.
Yeah.
Before climbing in head first.
It's interesting.
But
What other hobbies do you have?
Other hobbies. Well, cigars has been the last 4 years of my life, and so
That's the one hobby.
that's the one hobby, and I
Work, relationship, cigars.
And not in that order.
Cigars, relationship,
cigars, and then work.
So yeah.
Yeah. So we fit it in enough there that finally I decided.
Yeah, love you, honey.
Right. Exactly.
Love you,
Exactly.
bye.
You know, there should be some kind of hobby to get away from the cigars a little bit, and so got into tabletop gaming. And so
we're both
I'm learning
nerds.
so much.
We're both nerds.
Isn't that what the podcast is
Right.
about?
Yeah, I'm
bring
learning
everybody
so
and
much.
everybody.
All right, tabletop gaming.
Yeah, he's
like
a
table tennis.
No,
Right.
that's
talking
way
about
too
like
athletic.
Are you talking about like the
dice?
cocktail,
D20, baby.
Cocktail,
Like
cocktail games? You
not
like the old
cocktail
Pizza Hut?
games. He's
Pac-Man.
right.
Galaga.
Galaga and Pac-Man don't
No.
love.
No, those
we
are
will have
arcade
that in the
games.
room
That
when
are
we're
arcade.
but no, tabletop is in really nerdy, essentially dice.
Magic.
Dice games.
Yeah,
Similar to
that
Magic.
Sparkle.
Dungeons and Dragons. Would be
Maybe.
right about where it's at.
Alright.
So he's the B-boy, I'm the D&D boy, I guess is where we're... It's not a real term. Before anybody
Nerds represent
at
in the
home
cigar
thinks that that's a real
community.
term, it's not yet, but it might be. So
Love
we'll work on it. But yes.
But this is what you do to almost get away from the enthusiastic passion of your hobby of cigars.
Right.
You know, your day-to-day job, your home life, and it's just like this is something you can kind of do.
Exactly.
On the
Log
side.
12 hours on the computer staring at cigars and then smoke cigars while playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Love
is
it.
really where...
Is that all network now? I mean, again, I'm
There's
really
a lot of
showing
communities.
my 60 plus years on this earth. Apparently, that, like, I don't know.
There's
Like,
a lot
is this
of
all online now? I mean, I feel like
There
Dungeons
are
and
groups,
Dragons-
all over the world. Earlier today, actually, I was playing with some guys from Sweden.
Shit.
And so we were doing that, and of course, enjoying cigars while I was doing it. So,
Nice.
And that's one of those things I like. Ultimately, the most important aspect for any community is to actually be inclusive.
Sure.
The moment is when it becomes detrimentally to the community is when you have leadership that actually wanted to boost up their status. Ultimately, the solution towards that is actually being able to know when to actually step down from a leadership perspective and actually put the next leader up to actually be like, hey, these are the next gen people that are coming in to take on whatever community it is. There's a lot of people who are not willing to let go of the title belt. I mean, and granted, sometimes people want to stay up top, but at the same time, if you're actually you're able to be mindful of where you're at the top of the community, give it to somebody else, or even give it to someone who's in the lower stature and bring them up. That's the whole point of mentorship through leadership.
No, I think there's value to that when you're looking at these, and whether it be business or hobbies or whatever else. But I mean, you can't force someone to want to take a leadership role, and when things build on itself, and there are people in those leadership roles, it's like if they vacate that position, and sometimes they want to, they're like, this is too much. Now they're realizing they're hearing from their home life, like, or their job, like, hey, you're not available because you're spending too much time on this.
Yeah.
This isn't your paycheck. This isn't your significant other. This isn't your kids or whatever it might be. So then they want to, but then that group might fail. That society might fail because of that. I mean, that's
The cornerstone is lost.
There's both sides. I mean, but everyone needs to kind of realize their role. And sometimes, yes, egos get involved and they take it to another level. But that's the nice thing about hobbies. I feel like is that, especially, there is no paycheck involved.
Yeah, it's all
This is
pure
something
passion.
where it's like, bourbon, cigars, we talk about all the time, anything. It's like, I mentioned earlier, playing softball. I don't like what the softball team's doing. I have a choice to stop playing and just say, hey guys, I'm out. And if I really want to keep playing, then it's just a matter of me then going out and saying to a league, hey, I'll be a sub. You know what I mean? Like, I'll get on my
Free
first
agent.
sub. And honestly, that's what, like, when I used to play down at Burliner, which is a huge Columbus rec league, we started when we get into their 20s, 30s, and then, like, people get into their, like, families and everything else, we're looking for subs. You're asking around, and all of a sudden, there are actually people new to the area or that did go through this where, like, their team just went south, and they're like, I'm done, guys. This is too... I don't want to go out on my Wednesday night and get stressed.
Yeah.
Playing rec softball. You guys are ridiculous. You know what I mean?
That's where
they
that
back out,
hierarchy
they go
plays.
to the league, and they're saying, hey, I'm a sub, put me down. And then all of a sudden you start getting calls. You hook up with a new group of people, and you guys all, really sync up. hey, are you free next Wednesday? Yeah, absolutely.
Let's play a quick game.
But that's an ego on the other side. You don't, you have to necessarily try to correct the direction of that when it comes to hobbies. It's not your business. It's not, there's not as much on the line when it comes to hobbies. Like,
it goes back to
that's I'm going back to the passion, the happiness, and everything else. You start losing that, then figure it out. Whether get a new hobby, figure out who you're doing that hobby with, or just completely cater differently that try to take a new spin on it.
And like the most important aspect of that is, again,
figure it out.
Being inclusive to the next people that are in. I mean, the thing is, when you're able to actually take in new recruits, let's just say that, when you're able to take new recruits and actually build them up to the point where they have a certain amount of knowledge, and that hopefully they can play a very pinnacle role in a community. It doesn't have to be somebody who's completely knowledgeable about everything or have a certain stature, but being able to build them up to the point where they can actually get to a higher stature in a community is very important. It's almost in the sense giving back to the community. I mean,
I think it's really interesting how you keep bringing it back, and I think that's a commentary on where we're at when it comes to hobbies.
Yeah.
Is that you keep going back to the groups, like, and now it's like, based on what Spenny was saying also about, like even the Dungeons and Dragons thing, it's like you're now it's not just local, it's not like getting together, and you're gonna have that same mentality if you like go get together at some D&D club, right? I mean, back in the 90s, 80s, all that stuff, it's like this is something where you like, all right guys, let's all meet at this place and this guy's house or this store or wherever it is. You're
that
gonna
happened on my college campus.
Yeah, you're gonna get together and do this. You still have all that stuff.
Tower.
Yeah. My thing is that I feel like you're really kind of introducing the fact that like things get tainted because of the online presence in hobbies. Where it could be, and just like a lot of things online, it could be a greater resource, but then people take it further than what you're talking. And so that's what I feel like you keep going back to, and it's sad that it gets to that point because we have the opportunity, much like with anything else in technology, that you have the opportunity to bring in more and more people. Your social circle can grow based on like other countries, to your point, Spenny. I mean, you're saying like you're playing a game that you used to like to play, and now it's like you're able to play with other people all over the world.
Right.
And yet then it introduces this same aspect where it's like, yeah, this guy's an asshole.
It's overcompensation, basically.
Or then what happens when that hobby takes care of or takes over the rest of life?
Yeah, the same thing.
You can run into that where you have your day job, you have your hobby, but then all of a sudden you start noticing you're spending more time or more energy
or more money
on your hobby.
Yep.
Than you are the rest of your life.
Dude, I mean, I used to ride motorcycles, and that was a big thing. You know what I mean? Like that's a huge hobby, secondary lifestyle, where it's like
Just imagine you with a cigar the whole time, like.
I tried that one.
You don't want to smoke cigars.
No,
well, I can imagine.
I had a windshield. It was fine. I tried it one time, and it was good.
You're just like, I'm burning my face off.
Dude, yeah.
You'll smoke a Churchill in 20 minutes.
Yeah, not only burning mad, then you have like a little ember that comes back and like hits you in the face.
You have like 50 million scars. What happened to you? I just ate some gravel.
Yeah, well, you don't want to do that ever. I luckily never fell when I was riding, but the point is that like all of a sudden it's like you have a bike payment and you want to get the riding jacket. You were talking about like the paintball stuff. It's like these hobbies can do that, and then it's like, oh, by the way, the mortgage is due tomorrow.
Oops.
Fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where your priorities come to.
I ran out of money this month.
Well, that kind of happened to me.
Because I bought
when
a neck guard for paintball.
That happened when I got into paintball. Because it was right after I got out of college, so I was still living at home, and I went heavy into paintball. I was playing, every week or every other week with a bunch of friends, and spend $700 on all my paintball gear and everything, and then all of a sudden my stepdad's like, "Yeah, so I just watched you spend this much money on all this paintball gear. How about you start contributing to stuff at home since you're still living at home?"
Oh yeah.
How about you start contributing to the food, to the rent, to the utilities? I'm like, I didn't think about that one. Oops.
Well, we go back to the balance part of it, and I think that's where I think this is an important part to start getting into like the closing remarks, but I'll say this as I'll introduce this part is that's that balance. You know, we talk about, you know, cigars. You got 50 pounds of tobacco in there.
Right.
Right?
No balance.
Apartment, house? House.
Yes, sir.
Own the house?
Yes.
All right, so mortgage.
Correct.
Right. You go buy another 10 pounds of tobacco, ballpark the cost of that.
Let's say $200.
$200, right? Not bad.
No.
Right?
Like when you roll your cigars and you pass them out to your friends like Leo,
Hi.
are you charging?
No, I am
You
not.
should, by the way. Leo should
I
be paying for that.
definitely not, and especially for
So-
anybody
so-
listening, if
I
you
mean,
know
honestly,
Well,
I've given.
But no, this is one of those, like, you're spending money on a hobby
right.
and you're giving that hobby away.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
But
like.
that's where it's still a hobby. You're not doing it for business. I mean, I look at the table right now.
Yeah, I get that.
There's $80 of whiskey on the table, not counting what's in the garage. Calm down.
Or
I'm saying though, it's like, you know, like we're gonna like go through a $40 bottle of bourbon, doing a podcast, which is a hobby that may branch off into a small business / hobby.
Well,
or
and this
whatever.
hobby started out just you and Jake hanging out
Doing
on
Whiskey
Wednesday
Wednesday.
nights.
I'm
Like
talking
that was a
about
fun
the
hobby
beginnings of
turned
life.
into like a part-time job.
But again, the balance there where it's like, all right, just simple math, $40 for this bottle. Next week you buy a $40 bottle on a Wednesday. The next week you buy it. So 4 weeks out of the month, where are we sitting? $160.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, the
In
first.
whiskey that you're doing for fun,
Yep.
and then it's like your car needs new brakes. Oops. Are you upset about the whiskey you drank, or the fact that you're like, God, brakes are expensive?
Yeah.
It's like, hang on, like this is a reframing of the mindset here. It's
Okay.
like, no, if you know, there's nothing wrong with enjoying a hobby, but it's like you also need to balance your fucking checkbook, which our generation that is currently like
They don't know how
the
to.
three major generations are really struggling when it comes to that.
How old are you?
Old enough to know better.
That's a good answer.
Oh, okay. 28.
Okay.
So yeah, 2015. I think 70% of my income went to cigars.
How much?
70%.
70.
Yes, sir.
Of
Yeah.
your income
Of my
went
income.
to
cigars.
buying cigars.
Buying
Either-
cigars,
and good
or
for
going
you.
to Nicaragua, etc.
You either make really good money, which is
So-
good for you,
Yes.
and you can still afford a mortgage
Right. No, it
And a
worked out,
girlfriend.
but
and a girlfriend,
at that
or
point,
she has a good job.
Those ain't
Right.
cheap.
But no, I like that though. I mean, at least you
yeah.
have you recentered since then.
I have recentered since then.
You're
Yeah,
like,
thanks-
this is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
thanks to a handy app called Mint, which I definitely
Dude.
recommend if you're, you know.
I stopped looking at that.
Yeah, I had to start because I was on the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But yeah, when the pie chart started showing just a big brown circle of cigars,
Dude,
I knew.
post divorce, you know, we talk about these. You're not from Columbus area. It was a battle. Top 3: rent,
Well, that yeah.
Fido Irish Pub, and Tinder Box. And when the owner, who's a good friend of mine now, or he was kind of a friend back then, but a better friend now, the owner of Fido pointed at a new TV, and he's like, "I just wanted to thank you for that."
oh my gosh,
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You know what I mean." And I was like, I had Mint at the time. I pulled it up, and I'm like, "Oh God."
So the cigar
When you
shop.
spend $1,000
right?
in a month
Oh shit.
at a pub because you're eating lunch there, dinner there, you're hanging out at night. It's like this is your hobby, your escape, and all that stuff, and you don't realize it. And It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm fine because I was making good money, and it's like I don't think about it, but it's like post that situation, you look at it like hindsight's 20/20, and no, like hindsight's a fucking smack in the mouth. You're like,
Yeah.
the fuck were you thinking, man?
Right.
So the cigar shop that
Like-
Yeah.
the cigar shop that I started at, the POS system they had, like we had a members club. It cost $5 for a lifetime, but every member was then in our POS system. So when they would buy cigars, we would log it under their name.
Yeah.
So that way, and the way we would sell that is mainly like, hey, if your wife or relative comes in to buy you cigars, we can look up your history, tell them what you buy, and then point them in that direction.
Yeah, the Tinder Box were a
So-
little bit more archaic, where we're not that fancy.
Word I was going to use.
Yeah. Hey, do you guys have like a membership or like a log?
Yeah,
like,
we get that.
No.
Yeah. Can you look up and see what so-and-so normally buys? No, I can't.
What's his name?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Yeah.
Do you have a picture?
Yeah.
And then we get the picture, like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
you right over here.
But the other thing the other thing that POS system did was it also tracked how much that person spent in the last 12 months.
Yep.
And
Fano had that too.
Yeah. And so there was a time where I remember someone, it wasn't even me, someone was looking at this one member like, oh yeah, you've spent this much money over the last 12, just this calendar year, just in 2019, you've spent this much money. And they're like, fuck.
Never tell them that.
Never, because then they start buying less.
Yeah,
Much like mint.
Agreed, yeah.
Mint. Unless you're scraping.
It was the worst thing you could have done was tell that customer how much they spent.
You got Spenny over here, he's like, man, I feel like I should have more money for stuff. And then it's like, you don't like that again, that's like swipe, online, buy now.
One of our regulars, Tony, it was, I think, last year. Yeah.
Tinder Box?
Yes.
Tony. Yeah.
Tony boy.
So his wife came up to him. It's not like him spending money on cigars was making them go bankrupt or anything.
No.
But his wife came up to him and was like, look, it's your money. You can do whatever you want.
I want your life.
But I just want you to know that just last month you spent $600 on cigars.
Yeah.
And he goes, holy shit. Now, anytime that customer comes in, he buys the cigars that cost less than $5 a piece.
Yeah, but he'll still treat himself. You know what I mean? That, again, balance. It's always
being
that thing.
mindful of what you're doing and what your hobby entails.
Yeah.
You just got to be mindful of what your priorities are.
All right, so Leo, I'm going to start with you. Closing remarks. Tonight, Get a Hobby, talking about Oban, talking about custom prototype cigars.
Ultimately, you should definitely accentuate your hobbies. Now, you have to be mindful of how your hobbies are actually taking on your life, and ultimately, you have to know what the community entails. So, when you're actually able to get into a community, no matter what hobby it is, you got to be mindful of who's actually in place and who's actually like speaking as a forerunner of the community.
You said leader earlier.
Yeah, as someone being a leadership role, you have to acknowledge who's that leader, and ultimately you have to give it back to the community. The most important part, of course, is balance with everything. Balance is key in order to actually know what brings you happiness, what actually, give you detriments. I mean, you can actually go full force in a hobby and therefore become a detriment in your life. Done.
That may be the shortest closing remark.
I thought he was going to go longer.
Sorry. I've been on short responses all today when it comes down to it.
Is that because his name's Longalong?
No.
Did you want me to give you a long closing remark?
Spenny, go ahead.
I'm going to try and keep it a little bit shorter there. Definitely get a hobby, but don't go so far as to need to get a life.
Wow.
That's nice.
The t-shirt. There's a
That's
t-shirt.
t-shirt. That's a t-shirt.
All right, I'll print it out tomorrow.
I love it.
No, we have a printer.
Dick.
Nate.
So I'll go a little bit longer, just to.
Oh wait, are you gonna go long?
How do you go shorter?
Yeah, I can't go.
Get a hobby, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, you
get a hobby, people. That's up.
So so Leo's talked about how hobbies can
be a detriment.
No, how they can also lead into a group.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go the other way. Give you a personal, not personal to me, a family member of mine.
Okay.
So I had a great uncle. He retired from Ford. Worked for Ford for over 30 years. Retired. At the age of 55, my great uncle, who ever since he was a teenager was like a 4-pack a day smoker.
Jesus.
Hi, how you doing?
So 4-pack a day.
This great uncle of mine lived in Kentucky. Every time we would go down to Kentucky, we usually stay at his house in our family property we call the Hale Holler.
Yeah.
So he lived towards the top of the hill. And there was one night, so we left Friday night after my dad got off work, and we got to my uncle's house at midnight.
Okay.
We sit down at the dining room table right around midnight, and my uncle opens a brand new pack of cigarettes. He put one behind his ear, smoke a few,
Put one in his nose.
then grab that one, smoke it, and while he's smoking that one, put another one behind his ear, smoke a few more. At 2 o'clock,
That's constant. I mean, to do 4 packs a day is constant.
At 2 o'clock, we decided to go to bed. The pack was gone. So he smoked an entire pack of cigarettes in 2 hours. So
In his sleep.
if you average that out, that's a cigarette. That's a cigarette about every 6 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
At 55 years old, my uncle had a stroke.
Wow.
So, and my uncle was retired now. So he's like, I gotta do something. I can't just, there's that saying,
Balance.
the thing that, what kills more people when they're retired. Because all of a sudden they stop doing something and they have nothing to live for anymore.
Yeah, you start the timer basically.
So he picked up a hobby. His hobby was woodworking. He had a little shop, and he would just do everything by hand.
Still smoking?
Still smoking.
4 packs a day.
Until the day he died. So
I gotta ask. How old?
he ended up dying when he was 81.
Jesus. Wow.
And the doctor said the only reason they could figure out why he was still living was because he found something to do. And that was his hobby.
Stimulation.
That was his hobby, woodworking.
Yeah.
There was one day he's looking at a catalog of grandfather clocks.
Okay.
And there was one particular grandfather clock. If he wanted to buy the machine cut pieces of wood and the machinery for the clock, it was going to cost $3,500. He looks at it and goes, I can build that. I'll just buy the machinery. The machinery cost him, for all the clock mechanisms, cost him like $1,200.
Okay.
He goes, I got some scratch red cedar in my woodshed. I'll just use that. He made a grandfather clock with more detail than what was in the catalog, and had our family crest at the bottom of the clock.
Yeah.
He built a fishing pole holder or rack that held 16 fishing poles just so he could build it. He had a little, 2-foot wide gas fireplace in his living room, and it was on a wall. And just for shits and giggles, he built a mantle of white oak that goes 5 feet high across the entire wall.
Wow.
Just because he could and had nothing else to do. So that was one of those cases where he had nothing to do other than pick up a hobby. And that hobby is really what kept him going for so long. I mean, so even the last time so he died when he was 81. The last time I saw him, he was 76.
How do you look?
The same as the day he died. I mean, he looked like what you would expect from a 76-year-old 4-pack-a-day smoker.
Yeah.
But he didn't need a cane. He got around fine. He made his own meals. He had a girlfriend.
All right. Younger, I assume?
No, about his age.
All right.
Perfect.
But
Found each other late, but that's cool.
But the important thing is, and this is what I think hobbies also come down to, he had something to do.
Yeah.
He no longer had his regular work. He had something to do. On the flip side, one thing that when you mentioned the topic, Steve, and I've been thinking about something along the lines of hobby versus home.
Isn't that cool?
All day long.
Yeah.
All day long. And it wasn't until I get here that you tell me that the topic was about getting a hobby.
Long time viewer, guest, listener.
But
yeah.
no,
Mindsets there.
So for those watching,
Yeah.
you probably haven't noticed, but Jake Sanders has come back into the garage.
No, there are a lot of smiles on the camera.
All right. So Jake had texted me a couple days ago that, for whatever reason, Jake needed to pick up some hours.
You want to get some extra hours at the shop?
I was already going to pick up some hours for a guy at the shop that's on vacation.
Right.
Jake wanted those hours. I told Jake, I was like, look, dude, I'm covering 4 of Todd's shifts. 3 of those shifts are on Wednesday night when you're doing the podcast. And he goes, I know that.
Yeah.
I was like, so you're going to work at the shop instead of doing the podcast, which is a hobby.
Yeah.
Jake, you're gonna work instead of doing the podcast. Yep. So to me, that showed a great example of taking care of home before hobby.
Versus hobby, yeah.
And I mean, so even though Jake's only 23 years old, I give him a
24.
24. Sorry.
Oops.
You were watching earlier episodes.
Yeah, we've been doing this. You guys have been doing this for over a year.
Time warp.
That's right.
When you started out, you were 23.
True.
But at 24 years old, even Jake had to know to, I got to take care of my home.
Yeah.
And sometimes I got to put my hobby on the back burner.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been thinking about for the last couple of days, and it was great that happened to be the topic for today's podcast about getting a hobby. But like we talked about, that balance, hobby versus home.
Well, sometimes you have to choose between those, and I think those are very, very powerful words. And I think that Jake's actions, and I'm glad you introduced that. I'm glad he's here because, he closed up the shop tonight, so he still wants to be a part of this, And
Put your hand in.
it'd be great to have like a GoPro on him the whole time, so he can be like in a headset, you know what I mean, where he's
Hey,
listening
what
while
up,
he's
baby?
working. Hit a mute button while he's helping a
Yeah.
customer, but then he's still chiming in.
We don't quite have those resources.
Yeah, no, we
so
got
if there's
them
any
in.
sponsors out there that want to sponsor
If
a
you know how to
GoPro
do
with a
that,
mic
that'd be
set,
amazing,
yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
But no, I think it's very powerful that you were able to kind of encapsulate all of that, where it's like the importance of a hobby is to, in a sense, get away.
Mm-hmm.
But we also talked about it's also you can include more people. You can even include people that are close to you.
Inclusive.
Yeah, very inclusive to your immediate circle, right? I mean, you can do that, but sometimes it does take you away from that, which is a good thing. I think that when you are to put a little bit in there to cheers at the end here. You're talking about your uncle with the woodworking. I'm literally thinking about you. It's like you're doing this now. No, I think you're at this point in your life that hobby and the passion, and I am actually blown away a little bit of your knowledge and your involvement in the cigar community. I think it's fantastic. I think that it's very interesting how quickly that you threw yourself, completely in it. 4 years into it, you're now rolling cigars. You're working a booth. You were part of the retail side of the trade shows. And it's all over the country. You're really basically immersing yourself into it.
Yeah.
If that evolves into a career, what we talked about tonight is that I would encourage you and anyone else, if that does become something where I'm one of those people that cigars were a hobby, and then became part of my lifestyle, and then based on my life events, it was a career opportunity. And I still look at it in the sense that Nate was talking about earlier, where it's like when I'm hanging out at a cigar shop, or if I'm hanging out at our cigar shop, I'm always there to help, but I'm not bitter about it. There's also the time where it's like on a Sunday or Monday on my days off, I feel like a cigar and I don't have one. I would probably also have that moment, and I've had those moments where I'm just not going to smoke a cigar because I don't want to go up to Easton, and I don't want to go in the shop, and I still need my alone time. You know what I mean? Like, that's still a thing. But I think of your uncle. Sorry, Leo. Like, you want to chime in?
I know. I have a part 2.
That's fine. We'll allow the part 2.
Uh-oh.
But I envision Spenny being your uncle. Maybe not the 4-pack a day thing.
Try not to get that.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Please
You're itching right now. Stop. You smoke cigarettes. No, I look at it as that is the importance of it. You've done all that legwork. You know what I mean? If you ever just completely stop, rolling cigars, you smoke them occasionally, it takes a back burner. But when you get to that point of retirement from your good career that you got going on, this is something that you can dive back into, that in your later years, you can easily just sink right back into it. See where the cigar world is, whether it be rolling your cigars. Everyone talks, I've got so many people, guys and girls, that are in the cigar community. It's like, man, this is my retirement job. When I finally retire, I want to go work in a cigar shop somewhere on a beach or something like that. They talk about the fact that I want to go do this. you could do that. I mean, it's like you have this hobby that doesn't go away. You haven't been turned off. You know, Leo's introduced a very valid point where you can have these communities that you get involved with the hobby, and then it turns you off from that because of the people that are involved. Yeah, the hierarchy or the people that are involved. And I think that this is something that you have that I appreciate you sharing these cigars. And also the humble nature where it's like you want the feedback, you know what I mean? Like, I could see it in you because I'd be the same way where like we were struggling, you know, smoking it, we're doing the draw poker and all that stuff, but the humility side of it is like, no, this is where I'm at. Like, I want you guys, like, I'd rather it be very smooth and you guys are all blown away by it, but also you're open to feedback, you're open, you wanted to see what happens, even considering the circumstances of 72 hours of, like, roll of cigars, we're smoking them on Wednesday night, you're like,
yeah, that was my fault, my bad,
my bad. I definitely didn't have the stock on hand.
It would have been cool if you told me that 2 months ago, but,
that was my fault.
No, you're good, it's fine, no, this is how it works. But I think the importance of hobbies is like we talked about, in summary, it's something that will give you that drive. It's just like when you have a vacation planned. You know, 5 months from now, you plan a vacation. It's like, it's not necessarily the only escape and you just go day to day and you rush it, but it's something to look forward to. You know, at the end of the day, you can go do that. The whiskey is one of those things, this passion that the community has for bourbon in the U.S. right now. People lining up. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's cool. It's something you can do as long as you have. Well, as long as you have that balance. You know, that's what you talk. It doesn't consume you. It doesn't take away. You were talking, Nate, about the fact that it's like sometimes those hobbies consume your time. It kills your relationships. Your job is getting in the way of your hobby.
Yeah.
Like, that's essentially what you were saying. Is that everything else in life is now getting in the way of your hobby, and it's like that's not
kind of ass backwards.
Super ass backwards.
Kevin make front butt.
But I mean, again, like with Jake, like you said, sometimes you make those choices where I mean, you can sacrifice a lot of things just to do the hobby, but when it comes down to it, brass tacks, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of the bills. You got to take care of all that stuff. And sometimes you have to take a quick step back from the hobby if it's over consuming your life, and you figure it out. But you don't have to give it up. You don't have to give it up.
Right.
And on top of that, to your point, Leo, I kind of mentioned earlier, but I want to say in this closing is when you have the passions you have, don't shy away from that being an opportunity to be your career or be a path for you to grow. Because if you're good enough at something and people want to pay you for it, go after it. But then also be open to now fishing's a hobby, or vacationing's a hobby, or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Like getting away from that, you can still enjoy it. Don't be scared of it or being consumed by it.
Don't let fear consume you.
Absolutely. Because I heard that from you a lot tonight. And a lot of that is that passion, that happiness that I keep going back to the words that you used earlier, which I think are a big part of the hobby, is that's why we do it. But
the reason why we exist.
Reason why we exist.
We exist in the communities that we entail. All right, yeah.
Well, I think you want to get in there?
Add one last.
All right, well, let's leave.
I thought that was a great way to close.
I was getting in there too.
Damn it, Leo!
But, you know, we're gonna open. We appreciate Leo.
Appreciate all of your passions, that what it may entail, but also be mindful of what actually entails with it. That for being. God damn it!
I feel like that's the fortune cookie that he's talking about on the back of the punch cigar.
Yeah.
No, the punch cigar told me that you look like a responsible adult, but you really aren't. And I was like, all right, cool.
Nailed it on the head there.
But anyways, yeah. Ultimately, pursue your passions, but also be mindful of what it might be taking on a mental aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Well, before we cheers, hang on.
You got an empty glass.
All right, while I do that, Jake, thanks for coming late. We appreciate you. Can't wait to have you back on. And
just jump in and be like, "Hey, what up, buddy?"
I also want to, again, thank Altadis USA for sponsoring this. The support's been amazing. I'm smoking the Upmann Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez. Everyone else doing that?
Yeah,
very good.
Fantastic. And since we don't carry your cigars, the prototype cigars from Tinder Box at Easton, I will say that what we're going to do, the Spenny prototype is not available at Tinder Box at Easton. what we do have is the Upmann Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez. So
which is a great bang for buck cigar.
Great, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you come in Tinder Box or order it over the phone between now and next Tuesday when Jake and I work until Tuesday at close, you'll get 15% off if you do Bourbon and BS podcast as a I heard about
name drop it.
Name drop it, yeah, absolutely. We'll do 15% off, which is the best discount we have for locker members. Do that. Tinder Box at Easton, thank you as always. We, by way of them, we got the Upmanns, but as usual going forward, the weekly featured cigar will be from Tinder Box. So thank you for the support. And then BS, as soon as I'm done with this Upmann, I'll probably light up my BS gold or silver that I got sitting here. Jake has a wonderful BS shirt on that you can't see. Got to wear that going forward. So thank you very much, Nate. Thank you for filling in, being here. 8th time you said.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Leo, 2nd time. Thank you for being here.
A little bit, somewhat more tame-ish.
Yes. Knowledge bombs being dropped. Spenny, thank you very much for supplying the prototypes. I appreciate you putting yourself out there and actually bringing us along through the process of how this all comes from a hobby to then it's a passion. And I'm excited actually to see where you go in this industry, because I feel like it's going to keep drawing you in, and it's interesting to see your connections. I mean, just talking to you, the connections that you have in this industry, and I would not be surprised if this actually does become somewhat of a side career or possibly a full-time career. So thank you very much. Viewers on Facebook, audio, YouTube, everything else, thank you guys for tuning in. Dustin, thanks for the help, as always, for chiming in the comments. Next week, we're going to have Tyler Jones, who was here when Ricky Rodriguez was here. He's going to come up from Dayton. We're talking about the cigar community. We're going to tie in the bourbon community. He's got a special willet that he's going to bring up. It's a 6th year that was picked just for the Saints and Sinners, which is the Tatawahe group.
Nice.
So we've got some special stuff coming up next Wednesday. Other than that, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Salute!